Imagine waking up in a building you've lived in your entire life, yet never truly explored. Every day, you wander the same hallway, open the same few doors, and assume that's all there is. You've grown so used to its walls that you no longer question what's above or beneath you. Then, one quiet morning, you notice a staircase you've somehow never seen before. It's been there all along, tucked in the corner of awareness, half in shadow, half in light. Curiosity stirs. You take a step upward. That's where this journey begins. The 7 floors of awareness is a map for exploring the vast building of your own consciousness. 7 distinct levels of perception that shape how you see yourself, others, and life itself. Each floor represents a different state of being, a psychological and spiritual altitude shift, from the basement of victimhood to the rooftop of creative awareness. You've been on all these floors before, you just didn't know it. Every time you blamed the world for your pain, you were in the basement. Every time you fought for control or validation, you were pacing the battlefield. Every time you felt free, connected, or in flow, you'd unknowingly reached the higher floors, glimpsing who you could become if you learned to live there consciously. This book isn't a set of instructions, it's an invitation. An invitation to climb, not away from life, but deeper into it. To understand why we get stuck on certain floors, and how to move upward without rejecting the levels below. Because every floor, even the darkest basement, holds wisdom. You'll see how consciousness evolves not by force, but by awareness. You'll learn how surrender can become power, and how freedom begins not when you escape the building, but when you realize it's all one structure, built by the same hand, animated by the same light. By the time you finish this book, you won't just understand the architecture of awareness, you'll feel it. You'll recognize when you're descending into old stories, when you're ascending toward clarity, and when you're standing at the window of stillness, watching the whole city of life unfold beneath you. This is not a journey of becoming someone new. It's a journey of remembering the infinite being you've always been, floor by floor, light by light, awakening to the space that was never locked. Welcome to the building. You've been living here all along. Written and published by Mindful Literary. Prologue, the building you've always lived in. Introduction to the metaphor of the 7-story building. Picture this. You stand in a towering structure, with sunlight piercing through the stained glass windows, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air. Each floor is filled with memories, experiences, and sensations, but it can also feel confining. Life unfolds as you roam from one level to the next, each floor offering a different perspective. Yet, how often do we stop to consider how much of this building we haven't explored? You might find yourself gladly staying on the first floor, where comfort lies, surrounded by familiar faces, predictable routines, and soothing habits. Yet, in avoiding the stairs, what treasures remain undiscovered on the higher floors? Sometimes, I catch myself staring through the window, watching the world hustle past, thinking, is this all there is? This metaphor becomes a powerful lens through which to view our layers of consciousness. Throughout my own life, I felt that I would peer through the windows of my floors, only to discover that often my perception was limited by the walls of my own experiences. I was stuck in patterns, with fears and assumptions keeping me confined. Each layer has its purpose, but I realized I had to embrace the discomfort of climbing higher, past the ceilings of my comfort zone. It's in these higher levels where clarity lies, where I can confront the complexities of life rather than retreat from them. This realization can spark a shift in perspective. I've started to recognize that every floor represents a stage of growth, and often, our perceived limitations are just imprints of experiences that we've outgrown. Sometimes we confuse the walls with our true selves, mistaking the cramped spaces we find ourselves in for the entire structure of our lives. What if I invited you to take a moment today and question those familiar walls? Perhaps by doing so, we could uncover windows we've long overlooked, leading us to new spaces filled with potential and possibility. A hero's journey through consciousness. Imagine standing in a dimly lit hallway where every door you've ever known rests before you. Each one leads to a room filled with memories, emotions, choices, and versions of yourself you might barely recognize. This isn't just a hallway, it's the very building you have been living in all your life, the vast architecture of your consciousness. The air here feels thick with the weight of old patterns, forgotten dreams, and silent fears. Maybe you felt this hallway in your own mind, as when you scroll through endless notifications, distracted but uneasy, sensing a restless part of you watching from the shadows. In this space, you're surrounded by echoes of who you were and who you might become. Each door holds a story or a shadow, sometimes a locked secret, sometimes the flicker of light you've missed. It's as if your mind is a house you know well but only on the surface. Beneath the paint and wallpaper, beneath the familiar creaks and sighs, lies something less ordinary, layers of awareness waiting to be revealed. These layers aren't just places to visit, they are steps on a path where each discovery changes how you see yourself and the world around you. I've been there, standing in that dim hallway. I've hesitated before familiar doors that hold comfort but also traps. Maybe you have too, late at night in a silent car, staring out the window, wondering if this tired routine is all life has to offer. That feeling of being stuck inside your own mind, cycling through worries, replaying moments that don't change. It's a common kind of paralysis that speaks to how consciousness can sometimes feel more like a prison than a home. Setting the tone for this journey, I invite you to travel floor by floor through this building. Each level represents a deeper awareness, a layer beyond the shadows that cling to habits or illusions. This is a hero's journey, not of dragons or distant battles, but a quest through your own inner landscape. The path isn't quick or easy, it's filled with rooms where you meet your true self, sometimes startling or soft, often flawed but always present. Walking these floors means moving from the dim shadows toward a dawning light, the clarity of understanding that sees beneath the veils of fear, doubt, and false identity. You might recognize a floor where you replay stories of past failures, silently criticizing that version of yourself as you scroll through memories like endless notifications you can't ignore. Another floor might be filled with voices of burnout and exhaustion, where every room echoes the tired sighs of someone trying to keep up with demands that don't fit their spirit. Yet another might hold that restless anxiety from late nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if life could mean something more, something whole beyond the usual tension. The hero's journey through consciousness is a passage out of these familiar but limiting floors. It's not about escaping who you are, but gently meeting each version of yourself with curiosity and kindness. This is where the real power lies, not in shutting doors but in opening them at the right moment to find light in unexpected places. It's a step away from the false sources of strength, the endless doing, the distractions, the mask of perfection, and a step toward a power born of awareness, acceptance, and intention. One simple yet profound practice I offer here is to pause in that hallway. Notice a door that calls to you, whether out of fear or attraction. Before you reach for the knob, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this part of me? Then, breathe into whatever feeling rises without judgment. This moment of pause shapes the whole journey. It invites you to meet yourself without running, to honor discomfort instead of fighting it. Awareness becomes the first gentle light in a shadowed room. Remember, every floor you visit is part of your home. You are the hero who knows the way. Keeping your attention steady at the threshold and choosing your steps with care allows the hallways to transform, from places of confinement to corridors of discovery. And as you move forward, the tone you set now will echo through every floor, a melody of patience, presence, and quiet courage that guides you through the unfolding journey within. Recognizing the loops of stress and blame. There are moments in life that hit us unexpectedly. Times when we catch ourselves scrolling through our thoughts or feelings like endlessly flipping through channels on a television that never stops. I've seen this in myself after long days when I collapse onto the couch, mind crowded with worries about work, relationships, or fears about the future. It's like a cycle that keeps turning, each loop pulling us deeper into exhaustion and self-criticism. Maybe you felt it too, those endless murmurs in your mind telling you everything is wrong, that somehow it's all your fault. These moments feel familiar, even unavoidable, as if we're caught inside a spinning wheel we can't jump out of. Understanding that these loops are illusions of control begins with recognizing how our minds latch onto stress and blame as if they're anchors holding us steady. We tell ourselves stories that stress is a sign we need to work harder or that blaming others can somehow ease our inner turmoil. But in reality, these reactions only deepen the feeling that we're powerless over our own lives, like being trapped in quicksand that pulls us further downward with every struggle. When we rely on blame or stress as our shields, we forget that beneath them lies a quiet, steady presence, the part of us that is capable of shifting perspective and finding peace. The key is to see these loops not as walls blocking us, but as fog that can lift when we soften our grip on what we think is true. Recognizing the repetition of these feelings takes honest attention. If you notice yourself blaming others for your frustrations or feeling overwhelmed by unrelenting anxiety, pause and ask, am I reacting to a real threat, or am I caught in a story I've told myself over and over? Often, these stories grow taller and louder the more we feed them, creating a cycle that feels impossible to escape. But what if, instead of fueling the fire, we gently sat with it, noticing how these thoughts and feelings shift and fade when we stop fighting? This isn't about forcing yourself to change right away, but about seeing the patterns clearly, the first step toward dissolving the illusion that stress and blame are your only options. Recognizing this pattern is like shining a light into a dark room. Suddenly, what was blurry and overwhelming becomes something you can understand and gently guide out of. Waking up in your own mind. It feels surreal, almost like stepping into a dream that doesn't quite let go of its hold. You hear whispers of laughter and fragments of conversations swirling around you, and yet there is a profound stillness, a gentle pause that invites reflection. In moments like these, I find myself cataloging memories, fears, and dreams, much like reviewing the tapes of a long-forgotten film. Maybe you have, too, perhaps late at night, in the depth of silence, you glanced around your own mental space, discovering corners you had never visited. This awakening reveals that the mind is not just a place we are trapped in but a building we inhabit, both shaped by and shaping our perceptions. The walls hold the weight of past experiences, the floors echo with the laughter of joy mingled with the shadows of regret. Consider how modern life often immerses us in distractions, scrolling through endless notifications, battling office burnout, or staring at a ceiling, questioning the meaning of our daily grind. Each thought captures energy and emotion, like a piece of art crafted over time. This realization is a doorway to deeper awareness, a potential we can explore as we linger in these mindscapes. In truth, we often get stuck in these echo chambers, where thoughts loop endlessly like background noise in a crowded room. This grasping for certainty can lead to anxiety and overwhelm. Understanding this is critical in changing our view. My own moments of introspection often reveal how thoughts can spiral when held too tightly. They cling on, feeling far more substantial than they really are, like mist taking on a physical form. Yet within this understanding lies a wisdom emerging from the depths of clarity. Everything we feel and think is transient, just as clouds drift above us. This perspective shift allows us to let go and embrace the impermanence of our thoughts. Reflecting on this can be incredibly grounding. One simple but profound practice involves pausing during your daily routine. Whether it's during a silent car ride or in the midst of chaos, take a moment to breathe deeply and acknowledge your thoughts without judgment. This act of awareness becomes a gentle reminder that while thoughts may come and go, the essence of who we are remains steady and unshakable. By practicing this, we can realize that we are not limited by our mind's architecture. We are the architects of our own experience, free to tear down the walls that keep us confined and build bridges to expansive spaces of understanding. Chapter 1. The Basement, Victim Consciousness, the Inverted Mirror. Living as Reactors, the Unconscious Victim Mindset. There's a moment, often unnoticed, when your phone lights up again and again, each notification pulling you back into a whirlpool of distraction. Maybe you're sitting in a quiet room, but the endless buzz inside your mind keeps you restless. The emails demand answers you don't want to give, the messages pile up, and your thoughts race ahead to all the tasks that seem too many, too urgent. It's as if life itself is knocking so loudly you can't hear your own voice. In those moments, you feel less like the driver of your own journey and more like a passenger trapped in a storm, buffeted by waves you can't stop or steer around. I've seen this in myself, that flood of overwhelm where everything feels reactive, never truly your choice. Maybe you have too, the late nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if there's more to life than endless reactions to things outside your control. This sensation, this undercurrent of being pushed from one moment to the next by circumstances or the demands of others, is at the heart of what I call living as reactors. It's the unconscious victim mindset, the place where true power slips away while we believe we're resisting or surviving. To live as a reactor is to hand over your power to everything happening around you. You wake up, and instead of directing your day, you respond automatically to whatever pulls your attention. A call, an email, a mood, a fear. The world outside becomes the cause of how you feel, and you slip into blaming it. The traffic caused you stress, the boss made you angry, that person's words hurt you. This cycle feels like truth because it's immediate and visceral, but it quietly steals away your freedom. The victim mindset isn't about actual victimhood, it's about the unconscious habit of reacting without choice, assuming you're a passenger when you could be the pilot. When you aren't aware of this pattern, it traps you like quicksand. You blame others or the situation, hoping something external will change and fix your discomfort or pain. But until you break free from that reflex, you live caught between frustration and helplessness. The more you hand your power away, the smaller your role becomes in your own life story. The irony is that this unconscious giving away of power feels like safety. Reacting to what's outside can feel easier than facing the messy, uncertain parts inside, the doubts, the responsibility, the need to choose differently. Awareness is where this all begins to shift. Awareness means noticing the moments you're pulled into reactivity, catching the impulse to blame or get lost in overwhelm. Imagine that late-night scroll when you feel yourself sinking deeper into anxiety, noticing the breath quickening, the heart pounding, the thoughts spinning like a carousel. That's awareness. It's not about judgment, but gently recognizing you're caught in a pattern. When awareness wakes up, it breaks the spell and opens a space where choice can enter. In that space, you begin to see that the storm outside doesn't have to dictate your inner weather. There's a metaphor I often turn to: living as reactors is like being a leaf caught in a rushing river. The current pulls you wherever it wills, turbulent, relentless, seemingly unforgiving. But awareness is what lets you feel the river's flow, know where you are in it, and even reach to grab a branch to steady yourself. True power isn't about controlling the river, that's impossible, but about choosing how you navigate it, how you keep your balance, and when you let go or hold on. This gentle shift redefines where your power lives, moving it from outside forces to your own presence and attention. A simple question can open this door: am I responding because I must, or because I choose to? When you pause and honestly ask this, you start to reclaim the driver's seat. It's a moment of waking up to your own agency, even in small ways. Maybe you don't answer that text immediately. Maybe you take a breath before reacting to a difficult email. Maybe you recognize a frustration but don't carry it into the rest of your day. These little moments build on each other, brick by brick, until living reactively feels less like a default and more like a choice you make or refuse. Awareness doesn't erase the river's power, but it gives you a way to move through it that feels less like survival and more like presence. The three pillars: blame, complaint, and powerlessness. Late into a quiet night, lying alone in the dark, I've caught myself staring at the ceiling, feeling like a victim of circumstances. Life's disappointments pile up: missed opportunities, disagreements at work, misunderstandings with loved ones. It's easy to fall into a trap of feeling helpless, thinking that somehow the world is against us, or that our struggles are entirely out of our control. We blame others for our setbacks, complain about our circumstances, and sometimes surrender to the idea that nothing can change. It's a familiar pattern, like being caught in a current that pulls us further from what we truly want, an illusion of powerlessness that keeps us stuck in the same place. Recognizing this state begins with understanding how often we slip into blaming, complaining, or feeling helpless without even realizing it. The three pillars, blame, complaint, and powerlessness, serve as quiet anchors that keep us locked in a cycle of feeling victimized by life. Blame is the act of pointing fingers outward, assigning responsibility to others or external forces for how we feel or what happens to us. We might say, "They made me angry," or "the system is biased," as if our reactions are simply reactions to outside influences. Complaint is the verbal expression of dissatisfaction, constantly focusing on what's wrong, whether it's the weather, a bad day at work, or a broken relationship. It's the voice that echoes inside, telling us things could be better if only circumstances were different. Powerlessness is the surrender to feeling that our choices don't matter, that life dictates our experience and we're merely along for the ride. All three reinforce a belief that outside forces hold our fate, that we are helpless to influence our lives. It's easy to see how these patterns keep us anchored in a false sense of control. We become prisoners of our own stories, constantly casting blame and expressing dissatisfaction as a way of avoiding responsibility. When we blame others, we shift our energy outward, giving away our internal power. Complaints become a way to vent frustration but rarely lead to change. Feeling powerless convinces us that nothing we do will make a difference, which often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. These mechanisms act like crutches, helping us avoid facing the deeper truths about ourselves, that we are capable of choosing a different mindset or response. The first step toward freedom is to gently recognize when we're leaning on these pillars and to realize they're just illusions hiding our innate ability to take responsibility for our lives. Changing this dynamic begins with realizing that blame, complaint, and powerlessness are forms of surrender. They tell us that external events are the cause of our inner state, when in fact, how we interpret and respond to those events is within our grasp. Instead of looking outside for fault or comfort, we can begin to see ourselves as the authors of our own experience. This shift doesn't mean denying pain or difficulty, but rather recognizing that we hold the keys to how we respond. Asking ourselves honest questions like, what am I blaming right now? Or can I accept this without adding negativity, helps to cut through the illusion. When we stop giving others or circumstances all the power, we start reclaiming control over our inner world. The true strength lies not in controlling life outside us, but in choosing the way we see and respond to it. To start breaking free from these pillars, try this simple practice. When you catch yourself blaming someone or complaining about a situation, pause and ask, what is my part in this? Or how am I choosing to see this? Often, just shifting from blaming to personal responsibility can open a new space for growth. Real power is found in awareness, seeing where we give away our energy and making a conscious choice to reclaim it. Remember, the feeling of helplessness falls away when we accept that our responses are within our control. Every moment provides an opportunity to step back from blame and complaint, to choose instead a perspective rooted in strength and accountability. This movement toward inner sovereignty begins with one simple step, recognizing that true power resides not outside us, but within. Blaming the system and resentment. It's a night like many others, where I find myself staring at the ceiling, the weight of the day pressing down. I think of my job, the seemingly endless meetings, and the endless emails that demand my attention. Each sound from the streets outside feels like a distant echo of a life I don't quite recognize. I remember a moment earlier when a colleague blamed our project's failure on the system. It wasn't just the project that failed. We felt powerless, like pawns in a game played by unseen hands. How many times have I joined in that conversation, complaining about the lack of support or the obstacles thrown our way? Often, I find myself thinking that if only the system were different, if the rules weren't so rigid, or if the leaders were more understanding, things would be better. Maybe you have found yourself in a similar space, a silent room filled with resentment, feeling like a victim of circumstances beyond your control. As I reflect on these feelings, I realize they create a narrative that keeps me tethered to a sense of helplessness. It's as if blaming the system grants me permission to avoid asking harder questions like, what can I do differently? Or where does my responsibility lie? Instead, the blame offers a surface-level comfort, a justification for my struggles. It's easier to pin my frustrations on an impersonal system than to face the daunting task of taking ownership of my choices, my reactions, and my destiny. Sharing stories of lost opportunities makes me feel connected, but they also create a cocoon that feels so safe yet so stifling. In that cocoon, the victim mentality becomes a familiar companion. I've seen how easy it is to define myself by my circumstances. By labeling myself a victim of the system, I felt as if I had no control, no agency over my circumstances. Each complaint reinforced a pattern, one where I could sit back and point fingers rather than engage actively with life. The weight of that mindset can be heavy, trapping me in a cycle of inverted power. The irony is that while I've wrapped myself in the comforting narrative of victimhood, I've also shielded myself from genuine power, the kind that comes from acknowledging my role in the story. This resonates with so many people. Think of the moments when we scroll through endless social media feeds, drowning in comparisons. We're drawn into a false belief that everyone else has it easier, whether in their careers or personal lives. Watching those happy faces on screen can amplify our feelings of inadequacy, placing us in a position of longing rather than action. Yet, recognizing this victim consciousness for what it is, a trap, opens a door. It invites the question, what if I shifted my perspective? The moment I embrace the idea that I am in control of my responses, the weight starts to lift. Accepting that the way forward is not just about blaming the system but finding my place within it brings about a shift, a glimmer of hope. As the dawn breaks, signaling a new day, I'm filled with a sense of possibility. The gentle nudge to reflect comes through simple questions: where can I take ownership today? Or what small steps can I take toward my goal? These questions generate movement. It's not about grand gestures, but the small, significant actions that lead to feeling empowered, like stepping out for a walk instead of remaining in the confines of my mind, or reaching out to a colleague to brainstorm solutions instead of merely pointing out problems. By reclaiming that agency, I discover a deeper source of strength that consistently eludes me in moments of blame. Exercise. The responsibility inventory. There are moments when life presses down so hard it feels like the ground beneath you's giving way. I remember one night, lying awake in a quiet room, staring at the ceiling, scrolling through endless notifications on my phone while my mind replayed a conversation where I had failed to speak up or stand my ground. The weight of that silence was crushing. I felt powerless, trapped inside my own mistakes, as if the world was happening to me and I was just a bystander. Maybe you've been there too, stuck in a loop where blaming others or circumstances seems like the only way to soften the sting of disappointment or regret. That feeling, raw and suffocating, comes from a place called victim mentality. It's a trap where we give away the reins of control, expecting the world or others to fix what feels broken inside us. When you're scrolling through your notifications for an escape or staring into silence hoping for a sign, that's when this mindset plants roots. It seems easier to say, "This happened to me because of them," or "I have no choice here," than to admit there might be a shadow side in us contributing to the story. Yet, that very surrender keeps us tied to helplessness, wearing our pain like a badge, but with no way out. The responsibility inventory exercise acts like a mirror held up to those hidden parts of ourselves. Instead of looking outward for blame, it invites you to look inward with honest curiosity, not judgment. When I first tried it, the process felt uncomfortable, almost like peeling back layers of a wound that hadn't fully healed. But as I saw where I had been passive, where I had avoided owning my part in the outcome, something shifted quietly inside. It wasn't about piling guilt or self-recrimination. Rather, it was about recognizing where I had power to act, to respond differently, to rewrite parts of my story with a hand on the steering wheel instead of clutching the passenger handle desperately. Taking this inventory is like sitting with a calm friend who asks just the right questions to reveal what you might have skipped over in your rush to blame. It reveals patterns, moments when we say "I couldn't" that might really mean "I chose not to" or "I didn't want to face the discomfort." In looking honestly at these shadows, the illusion of helplessness begins to fade. The power wasn't stolen from us, it was waiting quietly beneath layers we didn't want to confront. The act of naming our responsibility becomes an act of reclaiming something lost in the swirl of life's noise. Trying this exercise is less about producing a perfect list or having the right answers and more about sitting with yourself courageously. Take a moment with a recent challenge or failure. Ask yourself, what part did I play in this situation? And where did I step back when stepping in was possible? You might discover small turning points where a different choice could have led to a different feeling or result. The key is to meet these moments without harshness but with a gentle clarity that invites growth. The true power isn't in controlling everything but in owning what is yours in the full, messy, imperfect story of being human. After a while, I found myself staring less at the ceiling, less at the phone, and more into the quiet possibilities that responsibility can open. The trap of helplessness slows when we see how much we hold inside us, both the cracks and the light, and we begin to choose differently, even if in small, almost invisible ways. Understanding. Building our own prison. Imagine a moment when your mind is quiet, yet a weight pressing down feels heavier than any burden you've carried before. Maybe you're lying on a bed late at night, staring at the ceiling, and thoughts swirl in a relentless dance. Worries about work, fears of failure, regrets from the past. In that silence, it's easy to notice how we can trap ourselves with our own thoughts, building walls from nothing more than tiny doubts and endless worries. These mental barriers feel real, heavy, almost like a prison made of our beliefs and perceptions. We often don't see how our own mind creates this confinement, and yet, it's something we hold onto far longer than necessary. We tend to think of the mind as a tool, something that helps us navigate life, but sometimes, it becomes the very jail that keeps us from true freedom. This inner prison is built from repeated stories we tell ourselves, about our limitations, fears, or how things should be. Every time we dwell on mistakes or imagine worst-case scenarios, we reinforce those walls. Over time, the mind starts to believe it's simply a part of us, a rigid fortress that keeps us trapped. That's when life feels restricted, and even simple moments like enjoying a quiet walk or a good conversation seem out of reach. The first step toward freedom is realizing that these walls are not fixed. They are the product of our own making, and by shifting how we see our thoughts, we can begin to dismantle them. Recognizing that our thoughts have created these cages shows us that we hold incredible power. We have the ability to observe our mental patterns and question their truth. It's like realizing you've been walking around with a set of blinders on, limiting what you see of yourself and the world. When I've looked inward, I've seen how small worries can grow into towering prisons, just because I refuse to examine them differently. Once we understand this, it becomes clearer that freeing ourselves isn't about escaping some external place but about changing the way we relate to our internal world. That insight starts to peel away the walls we thought were permanent, revealing a space where true freedom can emerge from within. Often, we are unaware of how victim thinking keeps us inside these self-made walls. When we blame others, external circumstances, or even fate for our unhappiness, it's like handing over the keys. Victim consciousness makes us feel powerless, convinced that outside forces control our happiness, our peace of mind. We cling to this belief because it justifies our feelings of frustration or despair. But in reality, holding on to this mentality keeps us locked in, giving away our power instead of claiming it back. Recognizing our role, that we are the architects of our own mental prisons, becomes the turning point. It's frightening at first to admit that our suffering partly stems from how we interpret what happens around us, but accepting this gives us the tools to change the story we tell ourselves. When we understand that our thoughts shape our reality, the idea of liberation moves from being a distant hope to an immediate practice. We can start to see that true power lies in owning our perspective and choosing how we respond to life's inevitable challenges. Chapter 2. The Battlefield, Warrior Consciousness, The Rise of Will. From helplessness to power, discipline and achievement. There was a day when I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling an overwhelming weight bearing down on me. It was one of those moments that seemed to encompass everything: the chaos of notifications demanding my attention, the frustration of endless tasks at work, and a gnawing anxiety that tugged at my spirit. Maybe you felt a similar sensation, paralyzed by the noise of life, where the world seems to whirl around you without giving you a chance to catch your breath. In those quiet moments, I realized how easily we can surrender our sense of control, drifting like leaves caught in a turbulent wind. This feeling of helplessness can invade our minds without warning, leaving us questioning our worth and our path. Discipline became my lifeline. A subtle yet profound shift occurred when I started treating it as the foundation for my daily life. It transformed my scattered thoughts into focused actions, shifting the narrative from one of powerlessness to one of steady achievement. Each small act of discipline, waking early, setting boundaries, turning off my phone for moments of quiet, started to accumulate like pebbles in a jar. As I practiced, I began to notice a robust inner strength building within me. The moments I thought I couldn't overcome were often the ones that steeled my resolve. Each time I chose discipline over chaos, I was silently forging an unwavering will, a solid core that could withstand life's storms. There's a beauty in this transformation, where what once drained my energy became a source of empowerment. When we shift our gaze, we start to understand that helplessness is often a mask for fear and uncertainty. Acknowledging that fear allowed me to see the choices I had, even in chaotic circumstances. It's not about becoming a different person. It's about awakening the power already inside us. Just as water finds its way around obstacles, so can we find paths toward achievement and fulfillment. The quiet discipline of our decisions may not seem monumental at first, but layer upon layer, they build a life filled with purpose and strength. Each day is a new chance, an opportunity to reflect on what matters most. What are you doing today that moves you toward your truth? Perhaps it's a deep breath in the morning or writing down your thoughts. It doesn't have to be grand, just a commitment to yourself. As you step into your own journey, remember that discipline is not a punishment, it's a gift. It can be an anchor amidst the storm, a guiding light that leads you to your true potential. Ask yourself, how can I practice discipline today to take back my power? Each small action builds the foundation of a resilient spirit, leading you from moments of feeling lost to paths filled with promise and achievement. The noble struggle, enslavement through effort. There's a moment I've watched in myself, And maybe you felt it too, when the day grinds down into dusk but the mind won't let go. The weight of unfinished tasks presses heavy, like an invisible opponent you can't put down. Imagine sitting at a desk littered with notes, deadlines glaring from the screen, and your body aching from hours of relentless strain. You're a warrior on a battlefield, not with sword and shield, but with constant effort, endless to-do lists, and the desire to control everything that spins out of reach. Exhaustion isn't just physical here. It's the slow erosion of spirit as hours bleed into night, and the promise of rest feels further away than ever. This struggle is more than just being busy. It's that desperate push against chaos, as if sheer effort might bend the world to your will. The irony is that with every ounce you pour in, the harder life seems to pull away. The endless scroll of notifications, emails demanding answers, meetings that stretch too long, and the haunting silence of a car ride where your thoughts race with worries you can't quiet, all create a landscape where effort becomes the only thing that seems to keep you alive. Yet paradoxically, it's a battlefield you cannot win this way. That desperate striving mimics the illusion of power. When you push harder, stay later, check just one more message, it feels like you're in charge. Like a warrior holding ground, standing tall, controlling what you can while fending off the unknown. You convince yourself that through effort alone, the chaos will settle, the balance restored, and the peace finally found. But the moment the effort slows, the ground shifts again, a cruel reminder that the control was never really yours. There's a silent trap built into this struggle. The belief that controlling every piece through constant effort brings mastery doesn't just mistake power for doing. It imprisons us in exhaustion and endless cycles. The fight to manage life's unpredictability ties us to an exhausting treadmill where rest feels guilty and failure looms large. Instead of freeing us, effort driven by control wraps a cage around the soul, making even moments of peace feel temporary and fragile. Our minds hold on to this idea because effort is tangible. You see it, measure it, count it. Working hard feels honorable and necessary. But after a while, this relentless striving dulls the senses to deeper truths. It forgets that not all control is possible, and some power is found not in pushing, but in pausing. When we realize that underlying the exhaustion is a tension between wanting to command life and life's natural flow, the face of strength changes. It steps back from the war stance and listens instead of attacks. This shift is like noticing the wind in stillness, not trying to force the sail but adjusting gently to catch its rhythm. The warrior learns that surrender isn't defeat but a quiet reclaiming of energy. Awareness that goes beyond effort reveals a space where true power breathes, not a noisy power of doing, but the calm strength found in presence, acceptance, and letting go. It's a breath held not in panic, but in trust, a stillness inside the storm. The hero who wins battles but loses peace. Sometimes, I find myself remembering moments when I just kept pushing forward, fighting to win. Maybe you have too, those late nights spent chasing success or trying to overcome challenges, only to realize something was missing deeper inside. It feels like scaling a mountain, each victory fueling a desire for the next, but at some point, the summit doesn't bring the calm we imagined. Instead, there's a hollow space that no achievement seems to fill. It's as if all our triumphs are just temporary milestones on a road that never quite leads us home to peace. This pattern reflects a truth about how we often see strength. We think winning battles means we're strong. We measure success by our ability to conquer obstacles, to come out on top when others might stumble. But what if that hero, the one constantly winning, is also losing something vital inside? Victory can come at a cost, quietly eroding the very peace that might help us hold onto the strength we crave. The more battles we win without understanding their toll, the more distant tranquility feels, like a prize that can only be earned when we stop fighting ourselves. Understanding this means recognizing a subtle but powerful shift. True strength doesn't come solely from the wins. It grows when we learn to accept our struggles and surrender to what's beyond control. The hero who fights relentlessly might win every fight but miss the quiet that lives between moments of triumph. Imagine someone climbing a mountain, their eyes fixed only on the peak, ignoring the quiet valleys below where peace quietly rests. Sometimes, stopping the fight to breathe, to listen, becomes the real victory. This can be difficult because in our culture, winning is celebrated, and surrender feels like giving up. But maybe the real hero is the one brave enough to let go, to find stability not in victory, but in peace that isn't won but uncovered beneath the chaos. In the end, I've seen how the desire for victory can blind us to the peace we're already holding. It's easy to chase after accomplishments, but harder to pause and see the calm that's present when we stop struggling so fiercely. Holding on to the idea that battles define us keeps us from noticing the quiet strength that comes from accepting ourselves exactly as we are, in every moment. The journey isn't about winning every fight, but about knowing when to lay down the sword and listen to the gentle voice inside that whispers, "You are enough just as you are." Winning in life isn't about conquering everything outside, but about making peace with what's inside. A simple truth I try to remind myself: sometimes the bravest act is not a fierce fight, but surrendering to the stillness within. That's where real strength begins, when we let go of the need to always be victorious. So, next time the urge to win screams loudly, ask yourself if it's worth losing a quiet moment of peace. Remember, a hero who truly wins isn't defined by the battles they conquer but by the peace they carry within, no matter what challenges come their way. Practice. Audit of the struggle. It begins in the quiet of the night, where the hum of the world fades, and it's just you and your thoughts. I've been there, lying awake with a racing mind, feeling as if I'm stuck in a battlefield of internal chaos. The heart races, the breath grows shallow, and anxiety grips the chest as endless worries swirl. This isn't a sign of weakness, rather, it's a terrain ripe for cultivating strength. Within that turmoil, flickers of insight await, like embers in the dark. True power often disguises itself as discomfort, seeking recognition in our struggles. In those moments of internal struggle, I've come to realize that this is where the real work begins. It's in grappling with fear and doubt that we begin to understand what lies beneath. Instead of casting it aside as mere weakness, embracing it opens a door to self-awareness that's often overlooked. The battle isn't against ourselves, but a confrontation with the narratives we've accepted as truth. This is a chance to rewrite the story, to reclaim the power that false narratives have taken from us. Now, let's take a moment to reflect. What truly feeds your sense of power? Is it the fleeting approval from others, the endless chase of success, or perhaps the burden of maintaining an image? In my journey, I found that these false sources of strength often wore me down more than they lifted me up. They are like quicksand, pulling us deeper into doubt and uncertainty. To shift this perspective, we need to look inward and identify what really counts: awareness and intentionality. As I learned to recognize the patterns of my thoughts, I began to document them, much like a scientist charting her experiments. What do I feel when I scroll through endless notifications? What whispers of inadequacy rise when I compare myself to others? These reflections allowed me to see the landscape of my mind with clarity. The goal isn't to silence those thoughts, but to create space for them, acknowledging their presence without letting them dictate my worth. Here's a tool that might help: keep a journal. Each night, write down 3 things you felt during the day, especially during moments of struggle. Reflect on each feeling. Are they connected to external expectations or past wounds? This simple act can illuminate where resilience resides. By understanding the roots of our discomfort, we begin to forge a path toward genuine strength, one rooted in self-acceptance and awareness. As you lay in quiet reflection, ask yourself, where does my strength truly lie? Not in perfection, but in the willingness to sit with discomfort, to acknowledge it without fear. Embrace those moments as opportunities for growth. Each time you find clarity amidst chaos, you're reclaiming a piece of your true power, the kind that doesn't fade with time or opinion. It's a relentless journey, one filled with tenderness, introspection, and, most importantly, the courage to be seen. Reframing, the courage to lay down the sword. After a long day, there's a moment when the noise fades away, and all that remains is silence. I found myself in a quiet room like this, the clock ticking softly, the walls pressing close in a way only stillness knows how to do. The body sits, aching from exhaustion, but it's the mind that feels the heavier burden, an endless battlefield of thoughts clashing, doubts screaming, pressures gathering like a storm just out of sight. Maybe you have sat there too, staring at the ceiling as your mind rewinds the day's arguments, the small defeats, and the unspoken fears. It feels like carrying a sword that never rests, swinging at shadows that never truly disappear. In those moments, the real fight isn't happening outside us, in the meetings, the messages, the demands, but inside. It's a war between the part of us that wants control, to push back fiercely, and the part wondering if there's something braver than that constant battle. The sword, so long a symbol of power and defense, now feels heavy with exhaustion. The question lingers quietly: what happens if we lay it down? What if the strength we seek isn't about fighting harder but about stepping back with courage? The truth I've come to see is that power doesn't always come from clenching your fists or tightening your grip. Sometimes, it comes from opening your hands, loosening the hold on aggression we've been conditioned to believe is necessary for survival. This is not weakness, rather, it is the courage to set boundaries gently with ourselves, refusing the endless cycle of anger and control. Vulnerability steps in here, not as a crack in the armor, but as a door opening to a new kind of strength that feels strange and unfamiliar at first. Understanding this shift means recognizing how much we've internalized the idea that showing vulnerability is risky, that it invites attack or failure. Our minds get stuck in patterns where aggression seems like the only way to protect ourselves from being overwhelmed or invisible. We carry these invisible swords not just against others, but against our own doubts and fears, never giving ourselves permission to rest or lower the shield. But what if vulnerability is the real armor? Imagine it as a quiet light in that dark room, soft but persistent, revealing parts of us that are tired of the fight and ready for peace. Instead of defending against an unseen enemy, we turn inward with kindness and patience, recognizing that the fiercest battles are often with ourselves. The sword becomes unnecessary because the battlefield has changed. Reframing power in this way invites us to see strength as the willingness to be seen fully, including the parts we once tried to hide or fight against. Try this when you find yourself stuck in that exhausted place. Pause and ask, what happens if I stop trying to control this moment with force? Let yourself feel the weight of the sword begin to drop, even just slightly. Notice the tension in your body ease, the breath drawing slower. This small act of turning down the volume on your inner battles is an invitation for something gentler to take root. It might not solve everything at once, but it opens space for clarity and peace that has been waiting in the silence all along. Chapter 3. The Palace, Achiever Consciousness, the Golden Cage. The seduction of success and illusions of control. When I think about the pursuit of success, I see a shining, gilded path that promises freedom but often leaves us feeling trapped. Success can feel like a cage painted with bright colors, where each achievement adds new bars that seem to elevate us but actually confine us. We chase after bigger titles, more money, or faster recognition because deep down, we believe that control over these external markers grants us power over our lives. Yet, in this chase, many of us find ourselves locked inside a prison made of our own ambitions and desires, still yearning for more without ever feeling truly free. Success, it turns out, can be the most alluring trap, a place that promises to set us free but often keeps us internally bound and longing for something beyond the horizon. The idea that success equals control is a powerful myth. We convince ourselves that if we reach certain goals, we can steer the course of our lives with certainty. But if we look closely at how success is attained, whether through jobs, status, or material things, we see that much of it depends on factors beyond our influence. An unexpected layoffs, a sudden health crisis, or the shifting winds of economic change can shatter even our best-laid plans. The illusion of control becomes painful when we realize how fragile that sense of mastery truly is. We invest so much energy into shaping our external environment, believing that mastery over circumstances equals happiness. Still, the more we cling to this idea, the more we feel like we're holding sand. No matter how tightly we grip, some loose slips between our fingers. This dance with success often turns into a silent battle against ourselves. The desire to control fuels our routines, checking notifications constantly, grooming our image obsessively, comparing ourselves to others in a never-ending quest for validation. Success becomes our mirror, reflecting an image we think will bring worth or security. But underneath that shiny surface is an ache, an awareness that our sense of power is fleeting, that controllable outcomes are illusions we cling to out of fear. This constant striving pulls us away from living authentically, from appreciating the present moment because we're too busy planning the next milestone or assessing how far we've come. The pursuit becomes less about fulfillment and more about avoiding the uncomfortable truth, that true sovereignty isn't found in controlling what happens outside, but in mastering how we respond within. Maybe you felt it yourself, a late-night restlessness after a big win, feeling hollow despite the external applause, or a moment of quiet introspection staring at a ceiling wondering if all this effort really means anything. That moment when the mind whispers, "There's got to be more than this." Recognizing the seductive pull of success is just the first step. The real challenge is to see past the illusion that control over external conditions equals inner peace. Instead, real power resides in cultivating a sense of sovereignty over our inner world, our thoughts, reactions, and convictions, regardless of what our circumstances throw at us. A shift occurs when we stop chasing the illusion of mastery and start understanding that true influence comes from within, from accepting that uncertainty and chaos are parts of life, not enemies to conquer but waves to ride. One simple practice can help reveal this truth. Pause and ask yourself during moments of stress or achievement, what can I truly control right now? Often, you'll find that only your attitude, your choices, and your mindset are fully within reach. The world may be unpredictable, but your response to it is always yours to choose. Letting go of the need to control everything allows us to reclaim our power from external illusions and place it where it truly belongs, inside ourselves. That is where genuine freedom begins, not in victory over circumstances, but in mastery over how we relate to them. The when, then trap and modern burnout. Imagine waking up in a gilded room filled with trophies, yet feeling a hollow ache beneath the shine. This experience captures the essence of the achiever's pursuit in what could be called the palace. Success is meant to bring joy, but often it becomes a gilded cage of constant striving. Each accolade is like an ornament, glinting in the sunlight but failing to warm the heart. I've seen this in myself. Perhaps you have too. The bright lights of achievement can blind us to what truly matters, making us blind to the beauty of the present moment. The room, though adorned and impressive, can feel incredibly isolating, where the pursuit consumes you, leaving little room for the quiet joy of simply being. In this space filled with accomplishments, the pressure to continue climbing becomes almost unbearable. We chase after the next big thing, convinced it will finally bring us happiness. Yet, each time we reach a new height, we find ourselves yearning for the next, like a mirage that keeps receding the closer we approach. The trophies accumulate, yet they do not lessen the lingering doubt or the weight of expectations. Each success feels less like a victory and more like another checkmark on an endless list. We collect accolades while neglecting our inner selves, often leading to a brittle kind of triumph where the joy evaporates as quickly as it appears. By exploring the when-then trap, we see how the infinite chase for future validation holds us captive. The thoughts swirl, when I achieve this, then I'll be happy. When I get that promotion, then I'll feel fulfilled. Unfortunately, this mindset keeps us trapped in a future that never arrives. The relentless focus on a distant objective often leads to burnout, a slow erosion of our well-being disguised as achievement. We forget to pause and appreciate our current reality, often mistaking busyness for productivity. The phones buzz with notifications, drawing our attention away from now and pushing us into a cycle of endless tasks that only fuel our anxiety and dissatisfaction. The quiet power of the present slips through our fingers as we become engulfed in a whirlwind of expectations and obligations. I often find myself staring at the ceiling, pondering the bigger picture and wondering if life means more than just reaching goals. Late-night anxieties creep in as we replay the day's small failures, forgetting to celebrate the wins, no matter how minor they may seem. Tired car rides home become an opportunity for reflection, a moment to acknowledge that the journey can hold as much value as the destination. However, being present requires an active choice to resist the allure of the when-then mantra that has us perpetually striving and rarely satisfied. To break free from the when-then trap, it helps to shift our perspective. Instead of defining our self-worth by future accomplishments, we can focus on what we have right now. Consider this: every day offers small moments worth celebrating, whether it's a laugh with a friend, a quiet morning with a cup of coffee, or the satisfaction of completing a mundane task. These seemingly trivial experiences build a rich tapestry of life that is much more fulfilling than a list of achievements. A gentle reminder to ourselves can be grounding. Life is not solely about what we accomplish but who we become in the process. Recognizing that every day is a chance to find joy in the hidden corners can subtly reshape our understanding of success. One practical exercise is to maintain a gratitude journal, where you jot down 3 things you appreciate each day, no matter how small. This simple act can gradually rewire our minds to focus on the present, to savor what is rather than what is to come. It shifts the focus from a future dotted with targets to one where fulfillment is found in daily realities. Each entry serves as a reminder that our worth isn't tied exclusively to achievements. It is found in love, connection, and the simple act of living. As you write, feel the shift within you, a gentle acknowledgement of your present self. The goal-driven executive's emptiness. The night had stretched long past business hours, and in the quiet glow of multiple screens, I sat surrounded by scattered papers, half-empty coffee cups, and a phone buzzing endlessly with notifications. The numbers on the dashboard blinked green, a new target hit, another box checked. You'd think I'd feel relieved or proud, maybe even a sense of accomplishment. Instead, there was just a strange stillness, a kind of emptiness that settled deep in my chest. I leaned back, my eyes tracing the ceiling's dull pattern, wondering why this moment of success felt more like a quiet sigh than a celebration. I imagined it as standing on the edge of a mountain, the summit just reached, but looking out only to see another, taller peak waiting. The rush of crossing the finish line was replaced almost instantly by the dull ache of what I hadn't yet achieved. In that silence, I wasn't a triumphant leader or a driving force. I was simply a person trapped beneath the weight of invisible expectations. Maybe you felt it too, the sharp disconnect between outward success and an inner void, that strange loneliness wrapped in accomplishment. As someone who's chased goal after goal, I've come to recognize this feeling as no coincidence. We build identities around what we achieve, the titles we hold, the projects we complete, the praise that occasionally comes our way. But like a bird in a gilded cage, that identity can become a place of confinement rather than freedom. The applause from others becomes the fuel, and the bar keeps rising higher, moving just out of reach. The quest for validation, from colleagues, family, even ourselves, becomes a relentless cycle, masking the quiet hunger beneath. This cycle traps us because fulfillment isn't found in external markers. The applause fades, the next goal emerges, and the pressure mounts. Rather than feeling whole, we feel fragmented, our sense of worth tied to performance instead of being. Some nights, when the world is gone and only the hum of the city remains below, it's easy to see how this relentless chase is more exhausting than energizing. We're sure that hitting the next milestone will stop the restlessness, yet it never really does. What keeps us stuck is the invisible contract we make with ourselves and the world. If we succeed, we belong. If we fail, we vanish. This leads to a constant self-monitoring, an almost obsessive check of whether we measure up. The problem isn't ambition itself, it's that ambition becomes the cage bars, shaping who we think we must be without room to breathe. We lose sight of our deeper desires, of what makes life meaningful beyond the next promotion, the next deal signed, or the next goal reached. This pressure seeps into everything, the quick elevator conversations that feel rehearsed, the silent car rides home where the mind scans over mistakes and missed chances, the restless scroll through news feeds that offer endless distractions but no answers. Underneath, there's a voice quieter than deadlines or emails, whispering questions like, "Is this all there is?" Or "When will I feel enough?" These questions are often swept aside, but they linger nonetheless. One evening, I sat by a window, watching city lights blink like distant stars, and realized the cage is not just built by external forces, it's built by our own habit of identity-making. We come to believe we are only the sum of what we achieve and forget that beneath those accomplishments lives a human being craving connection, peace, and purpose. It's like staring at a reflection that only shows your work badge and missing the person behind it. When we see this truth clearly, the cage's bars seem less permanent, and a new kind of freedom starts to form. The key shift is recognizing that our worth is not tied to a headline or a paycheck but grounded in simply being alive and present. It's uncomfortable, because it means sitting with the emptiness, not running from it. But paradoxically, that feeling of emptiness is an invitation, a doorway to discovering a life shaped by values and meaning instead of perpetual striving. The cage loosens as you let go of needing external proof and start listening to the quieter parts of yourself. When the world goes silent and you find yourself staring at a ceiling, ask yourself, what part of me isn't fulfilled by crossing this next goal? Let the question sit without scrambling for an answer. Sometimes the first step out of the cage is simply naming what you've been avoiding. This act creates space, a pause where you can breathe, feel, and begin to decide if the path you're on truly serves you or just the story you've told yourself about who you should be. Exercise. The why audit. Sometimes, I find myself staring at a long to-do list that seems to grow by the minute. In those moments, there's a voice in my head urging me to keep pushing, to stay busy, to check off as many tasks as possible. But beneath that rush, there's often a quiet whisper asking, "Why am I doing this?" It's easy to get caught up in the act of constant productivity without ever pausing to reflect on whether what we're chasing truly aligns with who we want to be. This is where the idea of a why audit comes into play, an honest look inward to understand the real reasons behind our actions. Many of us operate on autopilot, rushing from one achievement to the next, mistaking activity for progress. In this rush, we often lose sight of the deeper purpose that fuels our efforts. The why audit isn't about criticizing what you do, but about peeling back the layers of business to see if your reasons still match your true intentions. It's a quiet moment of honesty amidst the chaos, where you ask yourself whether your actions serve your genuine purpose or whether they've become habits pressed on by societal expectations or fleeting goals. When I've done this myself, I've realized that many of my pursuits were driven by a need for validation or a fear of missing out. Recognizing those influences helped me find more authentic reasons for moving forward. The process of asking why might seem simple, but it has the power to clarify what truly matters. It's like clearing the fog so you can see the path that aligns with your deeper values. A consistent check-in on your motives can help steer your actions toward things that genuinely nourish your spirit and contribute meaningfully to your life. The real work begins when we start comparing what drives us against what actually matters. Are your nights filled with activities that bring a sense of peace or growth? Are your efforts pushing you toward a goal that feels mine to own, or one that's been handed down by external voices? The why audit is an ongoing process, a way to stay connected with yourself amid the clatter of daily demands. It's less about finding the perfect answer and more about cultivating awareness, about keeping your intentions honest and yours. To make this practical, sometimes I simply sit quietly with a pen and paper and ask, "Why do I want this?" Or "What does this achievement really mean to me?" Writing down your answers helps uncover the intentions buried beneath surface-level ambitions. It reveals whether you're chasing something out of genuine desire or just because you think you should, or because it's what everyone around you is doing. Over time, this reflection can serve as a compass, guiding you back to your true north when the noise of day-to-day life tries to drown out your inner voice. Remember, the goal isn't perfection but clarity. When you tune into your reasons, you gain a kind of quiet power, an understanding that your efforts are rooted in something meaningful. The next time you feel overwhelmed or disconnected from your routine, pause. Ask yourself again, why? And see what truths emerge. Sometimes, amidst the asking, you'll discover that what you thought was your goal was just an echo of someone else's voice. By regularly checking in with your reasons, you reclaim space to act from your core, not from a fear of not being enough. Ultimately, the most useful insight from conducting a why audit is that it keeps your life aligned with what genuinely matters. It reminds you that success isn't just about crossing items off a list, but about understanding the purpose behind each step. So go ahead, carve out a moment today to ask yourself that simple question. Chances are, the answers will help you navigate your days with more honesty and intention, and perhaps even bring a little more peace into a busy world that often pulls us in too many directions. Wisdom. True success is being, not doing. As I stood on that podium, the weight of the trophy in my hands felt both glorious and hollow. The crowd's cheers echoed around me, but deep inside, something was missing. It was a familiar feeling, one that many of us encounter after we achieve what we think we want. For a fleeting moment, I felt like a champion, but as the adulation faded, I was left with a void. Have you ever found yourself chasing after a goal only to realize that the victory didn't bring you the happiness you expected? I've watched friends and colleagues pour their lives into work, only to feel exhausted and unfulfilled when they reach the next milestone. This pursuit of accolades, big promotions, awards, or external validations, often consumes us. We chase them, believing they will fill the emptiness, yet these moments of triumph can leave us feeling more isolated than before. Perhaps you've experienced that same spirit of brief elation, followed by an unsettling quiet. When the excitement subsides and you look around, you might wonder just why that victory left you feeling so empty. The truth often lies in the stillness beyond the clamor of our achievements. True success isn't about the trophies or the applause, but about our ability to be at peace with who we are. It's that moment when we're just ourselves, without the masks we wear for the world. I've realized that those moments of quiet introspection, where I could simply be, were the times I felt the most connected to myself. More than any award or achievement, feeling grounded in my own existence brought a profound sense of satisfaction. We can start shifting our focus by welcoming silence into our lives. Try taking a few moments each day for reflection. Sit without distractions and observe your thoughts. Gradually, let those moments blossom into longer periods of stillness. You may uncover insights about yourself that accolades can never reveal. Real success is simply being, embracing who you are, and discovering the richness in that existence. Chapter 4. The Temple, Intention Consciousness, the Science of Inner Creation. Shifting from goals to intentions, the power of being. There are moments when life feels like an endless stream of notifications buzzing on your phone, pulling your focus in every direction, a cacophony of urgent demands and superficial wins. I remember sitting in my quiet car one night, headlights cutting through the dark, feeling utterly drained, not because I hadn't achieved anything, but because the pursuit itself felt hollow. The goals I chased were like distant stars, beautiful but cold, never really lighting my way. In that silence, I realized something subtle but profound. Goals, with their ticking clocks and checkboxes, often mask a deeper hunger, a thirst to simply be. It's as if we try to paint our sense of worth on the canvas of achievements without ever acknowledging the artist within us, the part that simply exists. Imagine the temple inside you, a place where your true intentions live, not the hurried, pressured list of things to do, but those quiet, steady fires that warm your spirit. These intentions don't demand rigid structures or timelines. They resonate with your essence, whispering what you want to bring into the world, not what you want to get from it. In that temple, every thought, every action, becomes infused with presence. You stop just racing toward outcomes and start tuning into the experience of becoming. It's less about conquering and more about unfolding, less about having and more about being. Switching from clinging to goals toward embracing intentions is like stepping beneath a vast sky after being trapped in a narrow hallway. Goals tend to draw clear lines: 140 pounds, a promotion by December, finishing a project by Friday. They frame success with sharp edges, but they can also trap us in cycles of frustration when reality doesn't align neatly. Intentions, by contrast, ask us to connect with who we want to be throughout the process: patient, curious, compassionate. When I moved from a strict checklist mindset to leaning into intention, I noticed something freeing. My drive softened into a steady pulse. I felt less shattered by setbacks and more open to the unknown possibility that the journey itself holds value. This shift moves us from a place where we act from external pressure to one where our actions flow from internal alignment. It's as if the soil of your heart starts to hold more water, nourishing growth rather than demanding harsh results. That change in energy reshapes your experience. Instead of chasing a blurry finish line, you cultivate how you live moment by moment. The daily grind becomes fertile ground for creativity and depth instead of a treadmill of obligation. I've seen this with people around me. Once they settle into intention, their work gains a quiet authenticity, their relationships deepen, and even setbacks become lessons rather than failures. What keeps us trapped in the goal-driven mindset? Often, it's fear. Fear of not measuring up. Fear that without ticking boxes we're invisible or irrelevant. Our culture praises achievements and results, making it easy to forget the value of simply showing up as yourself. Yet, clinging to goals can breed anxiety and exhaustion when the path twists unexpectedly. This is why the Temple of Intention offers refuge, a place where your spirit is acknowledged beyond the scoreboard. It asks you to slow down and inquire, what kind of person do I want to be through this? What feelings do I want to invite into my life today? One way to shift into intention is to pause in moments when you feel overwhelmed by accomplishment pressures. Instead of asking, did I finish everything? Try asking, how do I want to show up right now? Or what's calling me beyond productivity? This subtle change invites your attention inward. Maybe you want to bring kindness to yourself after a hard day, or courage to face uncertainty. Intention is a soft anchor when everything around you feels chaotic. It reminds you there is a part of you that is steady, waiting, alive, not defined by what you achieve but by the way you live your presence. Holding this space for intention doesn't mean abandoning ambition or ignoring practical needs. Instead, It shifts the source of your power from what you do to who you are being along the way. It's like planting a seed with care instead of forcing it to grow overnight. The world around you will still ask for tasks and deadlines, yet your heart can move with grace, tuned to a deeper rhythm. I've learned this on late nights when I stare at the ceiling, wrestling with restlessness, and remind myself to breathe into the feeling of just being here, just now. That act of presence, simple yet profound, is the foundation for any true creation, from art to healing to connection. Try this. When you feel caught up in chasing a goal, take a few deep breaths and ask yourself, what intention do I want to hold in my heart right now? It might be openness, patience, or self-compassion. Let that intention fill your mind like a steady light guiding you through the noise. Notice how even a single moment spent in this way brings a softness to your energy. That is the power of being, quiet, unshakable, and endlessly renewing. The soul as an artist painting reality. Picture yourself standing in a quiet, endless space where every thought is a stroke of color on a blank canvas. Your soul, in this picture, isn't just a bystander but the master painter, quietly deciding what will come into focus and what will fade into the background. The studio is filled with all the potential of life, silent but brimming with possibilities, and each moment offers a new canvas to transform with your inner intent. Sometimes, we believe life simply happens to us like a random scene, but in this perspective, the soul's role is to choose the hues and shapes we see by the choices we make deep inside. When I've looked back at moments of difficulty or clarity, I often realize they came from the colors I chose to paint with. If I see pain, it's because I've focused on it. If I see peace, I've guided my thoughts toward calm and acceptance. This studio isn't filled with random brushstrokes but with the subtle, deliberate movements of the soul that color our perception of everything around us. The idea that we are passive witnesses becomes clearer when I notice how my attention and intention, like an artist's brush, shape the picture unfolding before me. That canvas is mine to create, and what I put into it determines what I see in the world beyond me. Realizing this shifts how we view ourselves and our lives. Instead of believing that life is just happening before us, outside of our control, we start to see ourselves as creators, able to influence the scene with the small, quiet decisions we make every day. Whether it's how we respond to a stressful email, a late-night worry, or just scrolling through endless notifications, each moment offers a chance to pick up the brush and add a new stroke. The power is not in external circumstances but in the choices made within, in the mental landscape we cultivate. When we grasp this, it becomes clear that life's richness or emptiness depends largely on what we intentionally paint with our thoughts and feelings. Sometimes, we get stuck believing that we don't hold any real influence over the world around us. We wait for something outside to change before we feel better, forgetting that the most vivid, meaningful change begins inside. Like an artist who practices with small brushes before creating a grand masterpiece, we learn that small shifts in awareness and focus can lead to profound changes in our reality. Holding this understanding close can turn an ordinary day into an opportunity for creation, where each thought, each feeling, adds a new shade to the story of our lives. When you realize that your mind is the studio, and your intentions are the brushes, everything you experience starts to take on new depth and meaning. So, the next time life feels like a blur, late nights filled with worries, days of drifting through routines, remember that you are the painter. Your intentions, no matter how small, carve the outlines of your picture. A simple practice to help tap into this power is to pause before reacting or making a choice. Take a moment to imagine you're adding a stroke to your inner canvas. Ask yourself, what color am I choosing? What feeling do I want to shape today? This tiny shift in awareness can turn familiar experiences into opportunities for intentional creation, making you the artist of your own reality instead of just an observer of what unfolds. Synchronicity as inner dialogue with the universe. We've all had those moments where coincidence feels impossibly deliberate, as if the universe itself is engaging in a secret dialogue with us. I remember one chilly evening when I was driving home from a long day at work. My thoughts were muddled with stress and exhaustion, the chatter of notifications from my phone mingling with my late-night anxieties. Suddenly, a song came on the radio, a tune I hadn't heard in years. It was the anthem of a pivotal moment from my past, a reminder of a choice I had almost forgotten. The timing was uncanny. Did it mean something? In that moment, I felt a jolt, as if the universe was giving me a nudge, a reminder that life is more than just a series of random events. It becomes clear that synchronicity isn't just pure chance. It's more like an ongoing conversation between our inner selves and the unseen currents of the universe. Each coincidence feels like a reflection of our own desires, intentions, and even fears. Maybe you've experienced this too, where a seemingly random event aligned perfectly with your thoughts or feelings. This dialogue is where our consciousness connects with the world around us, whispering our intentions into the vastness, inviting responses through these meaningful coincidences. It's as if the universe listens to our deepest questions, responding in ways we least expect, validating our fears or dreams through simple yet profound occurrences. Often, we get trapped in a cycle of repetitive thoughts, scrolling through endless notifications or getting lost during silent car rides, all the while wondering if life could mean more than the daily grind. In those moments, we might dismiss the uncanny events as mere luck or coincidence, neglecting the inner dialogue that could lead us to greater insights. The mind can easily pull us into a fog of burnout, making it difficult to hear those whispers from the universe. But every time we heed these signals, the small signs, the coincidences, we shift our perspective. We start to see that our lives are more than just sequences of events. They are crafted from the energy we put out into the world. What if we started to view these synchronistic events as opportunities rather than distractions? The next time you feel a pang of recognition when a topic pops up in conversation or you see a familiar number repeatedly, pause. Reflect on what you were thinking or feeling right before that moment. The universe may be offering clarity or guidance, nudging you to acknowledge something deep within yourself. Rather than rushing to dismiss coincidences, try embracing them as potent reminders that your thoughts and feelings are powerful. They create ripples in the fabric of your reality. Consider carrying a small journal or making a note on your phone when you feel that tug of synchronicity. Write down the events and reflect on how they connect to your inner thoughts. Over time, you'll see patterns emerge, revealing insights you might otherwise overlook. This practice not only strengthens your awareness of synchronicities but deepens your connection to yourself and the universe. By honoring these moments, you cultivate a richer inner dialogue, inviting more of that serendipitous energy into your life. Practice. The Intentionality Journal. There's a moment many of us know well, when the noise of the world falls away, and the quiet becomes so loud it presses on your chest. You might be sitting alone in a car after a long day, the engine off but your mind still racing. Or maybe you're lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the life you're living is really yours or just a series of habits you picked up without choosing. In that silent stretch between the past and the future, something stirs, a yearning for clarity, for a sense of direction that isn't hijacked by distractions or expectations. That's where the Intentionality Journal comes in. It's not just about writing. It's about meeting yourself in that quiet space and turning the swirl of thoughts into a map you can actually follow. You might not realize how much of your daily hours are filled with autopilot moments, scrolling through endless notifications, responding without thinking, and replaying old arguments in your head. We live in a whirlwind of stimuli that often keeps us from hearing what our heart is really whispering. Journaling with intentionality means breaking through those patterns, bringing what's unconscious to the surface where you can examine it freely. It's like catching a butterfly with your bare hands, delicate, but possible when you slow down and pay attention. Each page becomes a mirror, reflecting your hidden thoughts and feelings, inviting you to see what was invisible before. Sometimes, just naming what's inside can shift the way you move through the day. I've seen this in myself more times than I can count, those nights when my mind felt like a cage, and the simple act of writing down one true feeling set a door swinging open. Maybe you felt this too, the relief that comes with putting chaos into words. It's an invitation to practice kindness toward yourself, to be curious without judgment. The journal becomes a quiet companion, a place where you catch silent moments and give them meaning. It's not about perfection or deadlines, but about reclaiming your own narrative from the flood of distraction. Starting your intentionality journal doesn't need to feel like another task on a crowded to-do list. It can be as simple as finding a place where your thoughts feel safe, a bench by a window, a little desk corner, or even the edge of your bed before sleep. The key is to approach it with a gentle curiosity, as if meeting an old friend you haven't seen in years. Begin each entry with what's alive in you right now. It might be one word, a question, or a brief sentence about how your body feels. You don't have to write pages or aim for eloquence. just recording that spark of feeling is enough to start turning unconscious patterns into conscious choices. As days become weeks, you'll notice a subtle shift. What once felt like a random mix of worries and to-do lists transforms into a thread, a story you're weaving with more awareness. Intentional journaling invites you to notice the stories you tell yourself, about who you are, what you want, or what you think is impossible. Writing these down gently pulls them from hiding, giving you the chance to shape them differently. Instead of reacting to old habits or fears, you start to respond with intention. Perhaps you'll write about the exhaustion that comes after another day spent trying to meet everyone's expectations except your own. Or the silent question about what joy could look like, if you let it in. One way to deepen this daily practice is to ask yourself a simple question each morning or evening. What is one thing I want to show up for in my life today? Let it be small if it needs to be. A phone call, a moment of stillness, a breath taken with awareness. Writing it down grounds the intention and invites your mind to follow with action. Over time, this ritual draws a road from vague wishing to clear steps, helping to rewrite the invisible scripts that often run our lives without permission. The journal becomes a quiet but powerful space for creation, not just of words, but of life lived with presence. Think of the journal as a lantern you carry through the fog. It won't remove every shadow, but it will help you see the path beneath your feet. Sometimes, that path will lead you through discomfort or questioning, and that's exactly where true clarity grows. Writing with intention is like having a conversation with your own heart, where even the quiet doubts and fears have a place at the table. This practice isn't about fixing yourself, but about showing up fully, with honesty and care, so that over time, unconscious reactions lose their grip and your own voice becomes the loudest sound in the room. A small tip to start: when you open the journal, pause for a moment and take 3 slow breaths before you begin. Let your pen move without pressure, as if you're tracing the shape of your own thoughts. The intention isn't to overthink, but to invite your inner world to speak. That single act of slowing down and recording opens a doorway where none seemed to exist before. Insight, manifesting states, not things. There's a quiet moment many of us experience when, after a busy day or a restless night, we find ourselves staring at the ceiling or scrolling endlessly through notifications. In these silent spaces, we often realize that the feeling we seek isn't in the next goal or possession. It's in how we feel inside right now, how calm, confident, or connected we are. Sometimes, we chase external achievements, thinking they'll bring us happiness, only to find ourselves hollow after reaching them. This moment reveals a simple truth: our inner landscape shapes what we attract, much more than any object ever could. The way we feel, our inner state, becomes the foundation from which everything else emerges. Science shows that our experience of reality isn't fixed but responds to the vibration of our thoughts and emotions. When we feel anxious or afraid, our brain produces chemicals that make the world seem tense and unpredictable. But when we cultivate feelings of peace or gratitude, our mind shifts, and suddenly what was once distant or difficult feels more accessible. This isn't magic, it's a natural response of our nervous system aligning with our inner states. The key is realizing that changing how we feel inside doesn't require massive efforts or external changes. Instead, it involves becoming conscious of our inner signals and choosing which to nurture. When we master our inner vibration, external circumstances begin to shift because they are reflections of our inner frequency. Mastery over our states becomes the true source of influence, not the external material goals we usually chase. Many get caught up in the belief that happiness or success depends on external things, like a promotion, a new car, or a perfect relationship. We think we need these things to feel whole or completed. Yet, deep inside, a more truthful voice whispers that the real power lies in how we feel. If we can find a sense of calm when chaos reigns and a feeling of gratitude when circumstances seem scarce, we're already aligning ourselves with abundance and joy. Think of it like tuning a radio, not by adjusting the station outside but by turning a dial inside. The clearer our inner frequency, the more easily the world responds in kind. That's why manifesting isn't about manipulating reality but about shifting our internal states, becoming the kind of person who feels abundant, peaceful, or excited no matter what's happening around us. Chapter 5. The River, Flow Consciousness, the Art of Effortless Power. Letting go of control without passivity. As I drifted along a quiet stream one serene afternoon, I felt the warm sun on my skin and the cool water cradling me. In those moments, I learned the power of letting go. We often cling tightly to the belief that if we don't control every aspect of our lives, everything will drift into chaos. But what if, instead, by loosening our grip, we could find a greater sense of freedom? I've seen this in myself when I decide to put down my phone instead of scrolling through endless notifications, realizing that the world doesn't hinge on my immediate response. Life asks us to navigate countless choices and challenges every day, and it's easy to think that being in control is synonymous with being safe. Maybe you have experienced that late-night anxiety where your mind races through worries, attempting to predict the unpredictable like a tightrope walker balancing precariously high off the ground. But in that struggle for control, we often miss the beauty in uncertainty and the lessons that come when we allow ourselves to float. Imagine the possibilities opening up before you as you loosen your hold on the reins, allowing the current to lead you to new discoveries. Relinquishing the illusion of control enables you to access a deep well of power and peace, transforming resistance into effortless action. This isn't about being passive, it's about understanding the difference between surrendering to life and being swept away by it. When I chose to step back during a particularly stressful time at work, I found clarity and creativity that I hadn't known was hiding just beneath the surface. Without the constant pressure to steer every decision, I was able to approach problems with a fresh perspective. I began to trust my instincts more and to see that collaboration with others often yielded richer results than trying to push my own agenda alone. Letting go does not mean ignoring responsibilities or allowing chaos to take over. It's about finding strength in trust. There is a profound peace in knowing that we are not alone in our endeavors, that the world is a living tapestry of interconnected souls. Remember those silent car rides where external noise fades, leaving only your thoughts? Embracing stillness can show us how letting go leads to pathways previously obscured. Ask yourself, how might I embrace the flow of life today? That simple question can shift the direction of your day, leading to unexpected opportunities. Consider this: when we stop resisting the flow, we begin to find joy in the present moment. We cultivate awareness of our surroundings and the people around us. As you venture into this space, focus on what feels right rather than what feels safe. When you lean into uncertainty instead of fighting against it, you give yourself the gift of newfound experiences, those moments of serendipity that make life rich and fulfilling. The paradox of surrender: less forcing, more flow. Imagine sitting alone in a car late at night, the world outside dim and distant. Inside, the hum of your thoughts is louder than any sound. Your mind races through to-do lists, worries, the urge to shape every part of your life exactly as you want it to be. There's an ache beneath it all, a pulling tension, a longing for control that never seems to settle. You glance at your hands gripping the wheel, feeling the restless energy knotting inside you, as if steering this car isn't just about the road but the path of your whole life. Yet somewhere deep in that quiet moment, you sense something else, a possibility beyond pushing and forcing. It's as if the night air itself invites you to let go, to release your tight hold and simply flow with what is. This is the paradox of surrender, the idea that by giving up your grip on how things should unfold, you gain a new kind of freedom. It feels like you lose control, yet paradoxically, you begin to experience a gentler, more powerful movement forward. Life unfolds around you not as a battle to win, but like a river carving its way through land, persistent yet patient. When you resist or try to force what hasn't come yet, the energy tightens, and the current stiffens. But when you soften, when you open your fingers and stop gripping so hard, that same current carries you with surprising ease. It's not about sitting back and letting things happen randomly. It's about trusting that the flow under your hands knows more than you do. I've seen this in myself, moments when I held so tightly to plans, to ideas about how life should be, only to find myself exhausted, frustrated, caught in a loop of pushing against inertia. Maybe you have too, scrolling through endless notifications late at night, feeling an uneasy mix of urgency and helplessness. The constant need to act, to solve, to fix, this can feel like it defines your power. But it's a false power, born from fear and the illusion that control equals safety. The truth is, the harder you grip, the less capable you are of moving forward with grace. The paradox reveals that surrender isn't about giving up or becoming passive. Instead, it's a subtle, sometimes difficult shift, an inward softening that leads to outer ease. When you stop trying to force every outcome, you create space where life can breathe and shift naturally. Imagine a river, as steady as it is unstoppable, finding its path not by smashing through every rock instantly, but by flowing around and over obstacles with gentle persistence. This flow has power without violence, persistence without strain. When I learned to surrender in small ways, the experience felt like standing under a waterfall, letting the water pour over me instead of trying to hold it back. At first, it was uncomfortable. I was wired to resist, to prepare, to keep busy. But in those moments of surrender, something surprising happened. A calm clarity emerged, thick with possibility. Instead of battling every challenge, I started to notice when it was better to lean in and engage fully, and when it was wiser to step back, breathe, and allow things to unfold. Life didn't always happen on my schedule, but it moved with a rhythm that felt richer, deeper. You might recognize this from those times when you stare at the ceiling after a long, restless day, questioning if your hustle is really leading to more meaning. Or during office burnout, when every task feels heavier and less connected to your purpose. The forceful drive gets tiring because it's exhausting to swim against a current that's nudging you another way. Surrender invites you to flow with the current instead of fighting it, which often brings better results than the most intense pushing ever could. The urge to control and force outcomes has deep roots in how we experience safety and predictability. Our brains are wired to avoid uncertainty, to fix what feels broken. There's a primal logic in taking charge, in clenching tight to plans and expectations. That's why moments of surrender can feel so scary. Letting go feels like risking losing everything we've worked for. The silence in the car can quickly turn into a noisy battlefield inside, where countless worries shout that softness equals weakness. But this resistance is also a trap. The more we push and control, the more we reinforce active stress pathways in our brains. Anxiety rises, creativity shrinks, and we become prisoners to a narrow view of how things should be. The catch is that life itself isn't fixed. It's always shifting, unpredictable, and sometimes messy. Clinging to control tries to impose order on wildness, and that clash exhausts our spirit. The irony is that surrender, when it happens, opens new channels, like unlocking a door that leads to unforeseen paths and solutions. This resistance also plays out in modern life's rhythms. Endless notifications demand immediate responses, deadlines pile up, and social pressures add noise to our thinking. It's easy to feel that if you don't push harder, you fall behind. But that constant forcing burns energy without renewing it. The mind, in its attempt to manage chaos, actually traps itself in more chaos. Surrender isn't about stepping away from responsibility but choosing how and when to meet life's demands with more ease and less strain. Surrender doesn't mean shutting down. Instead, it's like becoming waves on the ocean, powerful yet yielding, able to move around obstacles with grace rather than colliding headlong. When we soften, we open space for insight, creativity, and new energy to arise. It's a form of strength that feels different from muscle and might but is no less real. Imagine holding a branch in the wind. A rigid branch breaks, but one that bends can survive even the strongest gusts. In moments when surrender appears, it often looks like patience, trust, and quiet observation. It feels like listening more deeply, to what your body knows, to the timing of events, to the subtle messages beneath surface stress. This shift can create a ripple effect. Suddenly, solutions emerge that weren't visible when you were forcing. It's a reminder that effort and ease don't have to oppose each other but can dance together, each allowing the other to exist freely. You don't have to be a passenger to life. You can engage fully while moving with its sway. Thinking this way reframes how we view power. The old idea that power is control and domination gives way to a more fluid, enduring idea. Power as the ability to adapt, to flow, and to find the deep current beneath the surface. When you surrender in this way, you tap into a source that never runs dry and never demands you break yourself to reach it. One simple way to touch this feeling is to take a moment during your day, perhaps when anxiety rises or the urge to push too hard builds, and pause to breathe deeply. Feel the tension you carry and imagine your clenched fists slowly opening. Allow your shoulders to soften, your jaw to relax. Ask yourself, what happens if I don't fix this right now? Let the question sit without rushing to answer it. Notice what shifts inside you as you allow space instead of filling it immediately with action. This practice isn't about ignoring your responsibilities but about recognizing that some outcomes need time to unfold. Trust can grow from this pause, and from there, your next step will come with more clarity and power. By choosing flow over force, even in small moments, you begin to change the rhythm of your whole life. You move from a battle to a dance, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always alive with possibility. Try this. Next time you feel overwhelmed by the urge to control, imagine the river again. See yourself as part of that current, moving steadily, not by brute strength, but by a steady willingness to surrender and trust what comes next. Surrender is not losing yourself, it's finding a stronger part beyond struggle, where life's flow carries you with quiet strength. The surfer who finds freedom in the wave. There's a certain stillness that comes when you sit on your board, eyes fixed on the horizon, sensing that moment when everything aligns just right. The wind whispers softly, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. It's a quiet anticipation, knowing that beneath the surface, immense energy is building. That wave, silent before it breaks, holds the promise of movement and release. It's in these still, suspended moments that the truth of riding lies, leaning into trust, daring to let go of the need to control every detail. I've seen this in myself, in those rare times when I stop fighting the small forces of daily frustration. Instead of pushing against the tide, whether it's late-night anxieties or endless notifications, I try to soften, to listen to what's really moving beneath the surface. That's when the wave's energy becomes ours, harmonizing with our own. In those moments, surrender becomes an act of strength, a way of dancing with life instead of battling it. The idea isn't about ignoring the challenge, but about shifting perspective. Imagine the wave is not something to conquer but a partner on a dance floor, inviting you to move with it, not against it. We often cling to the idea that we must control everything, that effort alone will make things fall into place. But on the water, as in life, resilience often means knowing when to lean in and when to relax. The more we resist, the more we tire ourselves out. The moment we accept the wave's power and flow with its motion, we find a kind of effortless strength, where our fears dissolve into the greater current, and everything feels aligned without force. If you think about those late nights staring at a ceiling, wondering if life has more to offer, there's a lesson hiding in the quiet stillness of the wave. Sometimes, it's only when we stop fighting against the uncertainty that we discover how much control is an illusion. The real power lies in trusting that the currents will carry us where we need to go, whether that's in the water or through our days. It's in this surrender that we find resilience, not by force, but by folding ourselves into the rhythm that was already there, waiting to move us forward. Recognizing this can transform every moment, turning struggle into a gentle flow of becoming. One practical way to start noticing this truth is to pause intentionally during your day, no matter how hectic, and ask, where am I fighting the current? Simply becoming aware of that tension can open a space for movement without resistance. The next step is to practice relaxing into that awareness, allowing whatever arises to move through you rather than against. With each small act of surrender, you build a deeper trust in the natural momentum of life, learning that controlling every wave isn't necessary when you're aligned with the ocean's flow. Practice, body compass and inspired know. The sun begins to peek over the horizon, casting a warm glow that dances across the water, and for a moment, everything feels still. It's in this stillness that we can truly listen to our inner compass. I've had days where anxiety nags at my mind like a persistent itch, pulling me away from that serene place. Maybe you have too. It's common to find ourselves swept away in the currents of life, wrestling with fears, doubts, and endless expectations that seem to shape our thoughts. Learning to attune your body like a compass is essential here. This practice involves trusting your internal sense of direction and allowing inspired intuition to guide your daily actions with grace and ease. It's about tuning in to what your body really wants. I remember a time when I was stuck between two job offers, one offering stability and the other igniting a spark of excitement. I found myself feeling overwhelmed. Then came a quiet moment, a stroll to clear my head. Suddenly, I felt this intuitive pull, a decision that announced itself in a deep, settled place within me that I had almost forgotten. Trusting that feeling changed everything for me. As we float down our rivers of life, we may encounter distractions that lead us off course. Social media notifications, deadlines looming at work, and the pressures of daily life can drown out that inner voice. The truth is, we often end up navigating by external signals, getting caught in the rip currents of other people's needs and desires. Our minds can race with late-night thoughts, contemplating the meaning of it all while staring at the ceiling, wondering if there's a deeper, truer purpose. This endless cycle can leave us feeling drained and disconnected from what really matters. It's easy to forget that our body's compass knows the way if we simply take a moment to pause and listen. Shifting our perspective is a gentle yet profound revelation. Practicing presence can help anchor us back to our inner guidance. Picture yourself in a quiet space, taking deep breaths that fill your chest and belly, slowing down your thoughts like gentle ripples on water. When you do this, you create a space where inspired no becomes clearer, allowing you to say no to things that feel heavy and yes to your passions. This clarity is powerful. For instance, saying no to a social event when you need quiet time can be liberating. Embracing the grace of saying no honors your mental space and time. To move forward, reflect on moments when you felt your inner guidance firmly nudging you. Think back to when you felt an instinctual pull toward a choice, big or small. Was it in saying no to something that drained you or saying yes to an opportunity that excited you? These moments can help you cultivate a deeper connection with your body's compass. Create a practice of tuning in, perhaps by spending 5 minutes a day in silence, just allowing yourself to feel without judgment. This simple act opens doors to intuitive whispers that may guide your next steps. Trusting that gentle inner flow can lead you to a life that feels more aligned with your true self. Revelation: you are the river, not the rowboat. There's a moment I return to often, a still, cold dawn beside a river. The air is thick with silence, broken only by the soft swish of water. I'm not rowing, not even paddling. I'm simply there, floating with the current. The river carries me effortlessly, no struggle, no forcing against the flow. This quiet surrender reveals something curious. The tension we often feel is born from the belief that we must control everything, that the direction, speed, and outcome depend solely on our effort and grip. In our busy lives, this feeling is familiar. We scroll endlessly through notifications, gripping our phones like lifelines, trying to catch hold of a sense of control over time, over emotions, over what comes next. Maybe you felt that too, the pressure of pushing hard against stress, deadlines, late-night anxieties, and the small, nagging question whether life actually holds more than this routine. The rowboat is our will, our plans, our false sense of mastery. But the river, it's the current of life itself, carrying us whether we fight or float. When I realize I am not the rowboat struggling upstream, but rather the river itself, expansive, fluid, moving beyond resistance, a gentle shift happens inside. The river doesn't force its course against obstacles. It swells, bends, and carves new paths quietly but powerfully. This means power isn't about fighting the current but about becoming the current, moving with it rather than against it. There's an ease in this, a strength that surprises because it feels natural rather than forced. Changing from thinking of yourself as the rowboat to being the river invites a different relationship with everyday challenges. Instead of clenching in frustration when overwhelmed by responsibilities or emotions, you learn to let the momentum carry you and allow room for change to take shape. In this fluid identity, adaptation isn't weakness, it's the deepest kind of resilience. This way of being embodies strength that doesn't exhaust or burn out because it taps into something larger than the individual effort. Our minds tend to trap us in the rowboat myth because it feels safer to believe that control comes from struggle rather than surrender. We've been conditioned to see effort and hustle as proof of value. Yet, this often leads to pushing harder when we're already drained, trying to muscle through life's currents instead of noticing where the flow may be guiding us. The rowboat mindset keeps us stuck in tension and exhaustion, especially when modern life offers so many distractions designed to demand our attention and energy. Seeing yourself as the river offers a quiet kind of freedom. The river doesn't resist the rocks or the bends. It finds new ways around them, even through them. It nourishes everything it touches and always moves forward, even during storms. This metaphor isn't about giving up or ignoring effort. It's about understanding that true power rides on flow and connection, not on isolated struggle. Here's something I found helpful. When caught in anxious spirals or feeling burned out at work or in life, pause and feel your breath. Imagine it like water, flowing in and out, carrying away effort that is unnecessary. Ask yourself, am I trying to row against the current, or am I allowing myself to move with it? That small moment of awareness can shift your whole experience, reminding you that you are not separate from the flow of life but part of it, moving with its strength and ease. Remembering that you are the river doesn't mean giving up your will or your dreams. Instead, it means trusting the water beneath you, the current that can support and carry you, even when the way isn't clear. It's a gentle invitation to release the tension that wears you down and discover a power that flows without force. The river carries everything forward, including you. Chapter 6. The Sky, Unity Consciousness, the End of Separation. Dissolving the illusion of me versus the world. Sometimes, life pushes us into moments where we feel isolated, like standing alone in a crowded room or lying awake in the quiet of night, wondering if there's more to this existence than a simple collection of days. We experience a sharp sense of distance, as if we are renters in this universe, separate and apart from everything else. This feeling is deeply rooted in how we see ourselves, the idea that I am separate, cut off from the world around me, with my own thoughts, fears, and desires. That sense of me against everything else often feels solid, as if it's an unchangeable truth. And yet, beneath that feeling, there's a quiet whisper of something else, something more connected and whole. It's as if we wear a pair of glasses that distort our view, making the world seem divided and us as the only real observer in the vast landscape. When I've seen this in myself, it's like noticing a curtain pulling back just a little, showing there's more going on than the surface perception. The illusion of separateness is created by the mind's tendency to label and categorize everything. This is me, that is not me, this belongs to me, that is outside of me. These labels, over time, develop into walls that block the natural feeling of unity. But what if those walls are only illusions, reflections of our conditioned thinking, rather than absolute truths? Waking up to that possibility can be like realizing your house of cards was never real, that beneath the fragile walls, a vast, expansive sky waits to be seen. When we start to let go of the story that I am separate from everything else, something remarkable happens. The line drawn between inside and outside begins to blur, and the sense of being trapped inside a small, isolated spot melts away. Instead, a new understanding begins to dawn, that all this separation was a mental projection, a way our minds simplified a complex reality into manageable parts. As these boundaries fade, the world no longer feels like a collection of objects or strangers but a living, breathing dance we are part of. The clouds, the trees, the people walking by, all are expressions of the same underlying energy that we are, too. This isn't just a poetic idea, it's a recognition that our deepest self extends beyond the individual ego to include everything around us. Imagine dissolving the walls that confine your sense of self. Your thoughts, emotions, and perceptions no longer feel like separate islands but become waves in an endless sea. Suddenly, there's a quiet space where everything flows together. No more inner versus outer, no more conflicting sides pulling at you. It's like realizing the entire universe is whispering the same fundamental truth, that separation was an illusion all along. When you see that, the feeling of being alone in a vast, indifferent universe gives way to a gentle warmth of connectedness, where boundaries are just tricks of the eye, not fixed realities. This awareness isn't something to achieve, but something to recognize. It's like waking up from a long, restless sleep and realizing that the dream of being separate was just that, a dream. You don't need to chase after some distant enlightenment. Instead, you can start noticing how the feeling of separation arises and gently letting it go, moment by moment. Recognizing the dance of thoughts and perceptions allows you to see how the mind creates walls that aren't truly there. And with that clarity, you begin to see everything as part of the same whole, connected not by logic but by an ever-present sense of unity. Just as those moments can catch us off guard with their simplicity, they often carry the key to the whole mystery of separation. When we stop fighting the idea of being apart, even just briefly, something shifts. We begin to notice that the boundary between me and the world is fuzzy, like the edge of a dream dissolving as we wake. This isn't about denying reality but about seeing behind the illusion to what's already here, an interconnected, flowing existence. Recognizing this can make daily life feel lighter, less burdened by the weight of being separate, and more like riding the currents of a vast, shared river. It's not a matter of changing what you see but of shifting how you see. Instead of trying to force yourself into a sense of unity, allow the recognition to unfold naturally. Notice when the mind contracts into thought and identity, and gently invite it to expand. This is a quiet practice, just paying attention to your feelings and perceptions without judgment or striving. Every moment offers a fresh opportunity to see that, underneath all the noise and labels, there's a quiet, unbreakable sense of being one with everything. That's where true peace quietly resides. Seeing through the eyes of the whole, compassion and empathy. As I sat there, surrounded by strangers engrossed in their screens, I couldn't help but notice the faint expressions of frustration, fatigue, and longing that danced across their faces. Each person was wrapped in their own microcosm, but deep down, a shared humanity thrummed in the air. It was as if we were all passengers on a journey, yearning for connection in a world that often felt isolating. When I began to acknowledge the stories behind the faces around me, I felt a shift. My heart expanded beyond my own troubles as I imagined the weight of their burdens. An expectant parent worrying about their child's well-being, a young professional anxious about the future, an elderly person reminiscing about times gone by. Suddenly, our struggles transformed into a shared experience. Each silent train ride became a living tapestry of interwoven stories, with every person contributing to the richness of our collective existence. Perhaps many of us are familiar with the persistent pressure of our individual lives, tangled in endless notifications or the quiet dread of office burnout. We can lose sight of the fact that everyone shares the same thread of existence. Just as we are tangled in our own late-night anxieties, we're also caught in the realities of those who sit next to us, whether physically or emotionally. There's power in recognizing this interconnectedness. When we shift our perspective from seeing only our isolated experiences to embracing the larger narrative, we start to weave compassion into our daily interactions. It's about embracing the realization that while we all have our struggles, we also have the capacity to resonate with one another's joys and challenges. To foster this awareness, practice taking a moment during the day to pause and acknowledge the people around you. Whether it's in a meeting, on public transport, or even among friends, silently inquire about the stories that exist behind their expressions. You might find that a simple eye contact acknowledges the shared human experience, creating an unconscious bond. This shift requires no grand gesture, just a gentle reminder that we are, at our core, interconnected beings striving for the same fundamental needs: belonging, understanding, and love. When separation vanishes. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself staring at the cracked paint on my ceiling. The world around me was silent except for the faint buzz of my phone resting on the bedside table. I scrolled through endless notifications, none of which felt significant, just fragments of other people's lives, distant headlines, meaningless updates. Yet, beneath that noise, a familiar ache settled deep inside me, the feeling of being utterly alone. I realized this loneliness wasn't just about the empty room or the solitary moment. It was rooted in my belief that something essential was missing, something I should have, someone I should be connected to, but wasn't. As the night stretched on, the glow from the screen barely keeping the darkness at bay, I noticed how much my sense of isolation came from what I couldn't see rather than what was in front of me. It was the absence of connection that weighed most heavily. That invisible space between me and others felt like a canyon, endless and quiet. Yet, in that quiet, I sensed my own mind creating barriers, invisible lines drawn from the idea that I was somehow separate, detached, existing apart from a larger whole. It struck me how often these unseen walls become the cage we don't even recognize. Maybe you've been there too, lying awake, surrounded by the buzzing yet feeling hollow, as if the unlimited stream of digital noise only highlighted the quiet inside. It's a moment that makes you question the nature of absence itself, how something can feel so loud when it's really about what isn't present. This kind of solitude isn't about physical distance. It's about the weight of perceived disconnection, as if the human heart is searching for a missing piece in a room full of crowded screens, messages, and empty replies. In the stillness of that night, I began to see the edges of this perception more clearly. The boundary between myself and others, the sharp line that seemed so real, started to blur into something less fixed. It was like the veil that separates one pane of glass from another suddenly dissolving, exposing a shared, open expanse beyond. I glimpsed that this sense of separation was not a fixed truth but an illusion created by the way my mind insists on dividing experience into me and not me. It became clear that this division didn't exist in the silence between notifications but was something I was holding on to. True unity was not some distant ideal reserved for rare moments of enlightenment or sacred spaces. It was present all along, woven into the very fabric of existence. The space that I thought was empty was actually alive with connection, quiet, unseen, but profoundly real. This understanding felt like standing at the edge of a vast ocean, suddenly aware there are no real boundaries between waves, just different expressions of the same water. When I stopped clinging to what I thought was missing, the sensation of separation began to vanish. The I that felt isolated was simply a story told by my mind, a character created to make sense of the world's complexity. Recognizing this eased the ache and replaced it with a subtle sense of belonging that does not demand proof. It's not about filling a void with someone or something else, but realizing that the void itself is an invitation to see beyond illusions. The hidden truth is that connection is always present, even when it feels like it isn't. This revelation is not just philosophical, it's deeply practical. When I stopped measuring myself against absence or comparing my loneliness to the noise around me, life felt less heavy. The quiet moments lost their sting and became a space for something new, a quiet confirmation that I am part of a larger whole, whether I can see or hear it or not. Maybe, your quiet nights have held this truth in waiting, too, beneath the restless thoughts and endless scrolling. When separation seems real, it's often a reflection of a mind trying to protect itself by creating boundaries. These mental walls can feel strong and permanent, but recognizing their fragile nature is the first step to freedom. I found it helpful to ask myself, what if this feeling of being alone is just a story? What if the connection I crave is already here, hidden in the stillness? This simple question gently shifts perspective without forcing answers, allowing new insights to emerge naturally. Practicing this recognition takes patience. The next time you find yourself overwhelmed by the silence or the stream of meaningless notifications, pause and notice the space those moments create. Instead of rushing to fill it with noise or distraction, breathe into that emptiness as if it were a room waiting to be inhabited. Consider how the sense of separation might be changing before your eyes, dissolving into a greater sense of belonging. This is less about solving loneliness and more about inviting a new way of seeing, to understand that the borders we feel are sometimes just shadows. When those shadows fade, the quiet reveals connection as it always was, waiting to be recognized. The ceiling you stare at might just be the sky reflected within, and the ache in your heart could be the echo of a truth that never left you. Remember, real connection is a space you carry inside, beyond what the eyes can see or the phone can show. Practice. Micro-moments of unity. Sometimes, in the quietest moments of the day, I catch myself noticing small details. A speck of sunlight slipping through a crack in the window or the gentle swirl of my coffee's steam rising upward. It's in these fleeting acts that I feel an unexpected sense of connection, as if the universe is whispering, "You are not alone." These tiny experiences seem insignificant at first glance, but they carry a gentle power. They dissolve the illusion that we're separate from everything around us. When I pause to really notice, I realize I am part of something much bigger than my busy mind or daily worries, an invisible thread woven through moments of presence. Sometimes, simply feeling the warmth of a handwritten note from a friend or the silent embrace of a quiet afternoon can turn a dull moment into a shared experience of unity, reminding us that we are woven into the fabric of life itself. Learn to anchor yourself in these micro-moments of connection, and you may find the boundaries between self and others begin to soften. Start by paying attention to the small signals around you, an unexpected smile from a stranger, the sound of birds outside your window, or even the rhythm of your own breath during a pause in your day. These brief instances are like subtle brushstrokes on the canvas of your everyday life, hinting at the greater picture of interconnectedness. Practice slowing down enough to notice. When you do, you create space for these moments to grow into reminders that, amid the chaos and routine, we are all sharing this human experience. Sometimes, it's enough to simply be aware, no need to chase or hold onto these moments, letting them pass through like gentle waves that carry us back to the truth. We are not separate, we are threads in the same fabric. One simple way to deepen this awareness is to set aside a few quiet moments each day. During a walk, while waiting in line, or even sitting quietly at your desk, remind yourself to look around with fresh eyes. Notice the tiniest things that usually go unnoticed. Ask yourself, where do I feel a connection today? Did I see a kind gesture, hear a soothing sound, or sense a moment of calm? By tuning into these small glimpses of unity, you begin to train your mind to recognize that these connections are always present, waiting to be noticed. Over time, this practice helps dissolve the feeling of separation that often clouds our view. It's in these simple shifts that we rediscover the truth that life is woven from endless moments of shared wonder, small but profound, fleeting but lasting in their impact. Keep practicing, and watch your perspective shift slowly but surely from isolation to a deep sense of belonging within the vast, everyday fabric of life. Wisdom. The self merges with the self. As I laid there, the sky was a canvas of blue stretching endlessly, and with each breath, I felt my anxieties begin to fade, becoming lighter, merging with the air around me. In that moment, I realized how easy it is to become weighed down by the endless scroll of notifications and the pressures of daily life. Each ping pulls us further from ourselves, fragmenting our sense of peace and purpose. Maybe you felt this too, on a sleepless night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if life means more than just checking off tasks and chasing deadlines. In that stillness, a thought emerged. What if this separation from oneself is an illusion? What if the true self lies beyond these worries, waiting for us to rediscover it? This chapter observes how the self, often scattered by identities, roles, and societal pressures, has the power to dissolve into something expansive and profound, the boundless awareness akin to the vast sky above us. When we peel back the layers of our fragmented selves, we start to sense a deeper connection to something greater. This realization can feel intimidating. Are we merely margins on a page, defining ourselves by what we do, or can we embrace the idea that we are more than our titles and responsibilities? Perhaps in this unity lies our true essence, a wholeness that reveals we have never been separated, but simply lost in the noise. The intricacies of life often lead us to believe we are isolated. We navigate office burnout, social pressures, and the relentless pursuit of external validation. I've seen this struggle within myself, where I would allow my interactions and accomplishments to define my worth. This external validation creates a cycle of dependence on others' opinions and expectations, reinforcing the fragmented self. But what if we pierce through that cycle with awareness and introspection? Understanding that our thoughts are transitory, much like clouds drifting across the sky, can open pathways toward recognizing the eternal presence that dwells within us. This elevation often requires a shift in perspective, a gentle reminder that beneath the surface of our thoughts lies an ocean of stillness. Practicing mindful reflection becomes a tool for reconnect ion. It may take the form of sitting quietly and allowing yourself to simply be, shedding the need for constant thought. Consider asking yourself, what do I feel right now, beyond the noise? Recognizing your feelings without judgment helps you step closer to the essence of your being. Imagine this, rather than pushing away thoughts, embrace them, let them come and go like wind. As you practice this, the distance between yourself and the vast awareness around you begins to diminish. You start realizing that every part of your experience, emotions, and identity plays a role in painting the masterpiece of your life. The beauty lies not in seeking to escape the highs and lows but in understanding they are woven together, forming a rich tapestry that defines who you are, in all your complexities. At the close of this exploration, take a moment to reflect on the vastness that surrounds you. You are not just a collection of thoughts or identities. Rather, you are a blend of experiences, feelings, and connections that bind us all. This insight offers freedom from the weight of separation, inviting you to bear witness to the beauty of unity. Let the sky serve as a reminder. Within its expanse lies our true nature, beyond the worries, beyond the definitions we've created for ourselves. Allow yourself to feel this oneness, to breathe it in deeply, and carry this awareness into your daily life. Chapter 7. The Flame. Create a consciousness beyond the levels. Living as the embodied flame of awareness. There are nights when I find myself alone with just the faint glow of a candle, its flame trembling softly against the dark. I watch it, noticing how it refuses to be pinned down, how it dances between clarity and shadow in a way that feels both alive and elusive. In those moments, it feels like the flame is a mirror of my own awareness, restless, ever-moving, impossible to capture fully with thought or language. I've tried to hold it steady, to make sense of the flickers, as if controlling the flame could somehow control the essence of who I am. Maybe you have felt something like this yourself. This urge to fix your experience, to define what's happening inside when what you're really facing is a mystery. That urge often comes from a discomfort with not knowing, from the habit of the mind wanting to label and box everything, including ourselves. When I stare at the flame of my attention, I notice how easy it is to slip into judgment, to call certain thoughts right or wrong, or to imagine that if I just think hard enough, I can grasp the shape of my true self. But the flame, like awareness itself, refuses containment. It's not a thing to be held but a living presence that moves through and beyond what I think I understand. The harder I try to fix it, the more it slips away, reminding me there's something larger at play than my mental chatter or anxieties. It's strange how something so simple, a candle's flicker, can stir up such restlessness inside. That flicker reflects the fleeting nature of thoughts and feelings, each one arising and fading like waves. The silence around the flame feels both comforting and intimidating. It exposes the space between my urges and my true nature, between the desire to control and the reality of being present with what is. In such moments, I sense how trapped I often am in trying to direct my inner world, overlooking the quiet presence that watches it all unfold. What if creation isn't about grabbing the flame or forcing it into a shape? What if the real alchemy happens when I stop trying to control and start embodying the fire itself? This is a shift I've noticed slowly emerging in myself. Instead of wrestling with the urge to steer every thought or feeling, I meet the flame with softness, accepting its movement without resistance. In doing so, I realize I am not separate from the flicker. I am the flame and the space around it, the heat and the air that allows it to glow. This means I am not simply a thinker caught in restless urges but awareness itself, the silent witness that observes, yet does not cling. This awareness creates and sustains all experience without effort, beyond the illusions of control or separation. It lives in moments of stillness and in moments of change, moving fluidly between them. It's like realizing that I am both the waves crashing on the shore and the vast ocean holding them, both the river's flow and the steady bank it runs through. Living as this embodied flame means stepping out of the roles dictated by fear, doubt, or the need to define myself. The tension between I and not I softens because I'm not just watching life from a distance, I am the life flowing through. It's a consciousness that doesn't ask for permission to exist or attempt to prove itself. It simply shines, quietly and powerfully, in every heartbeat and breath. This isn't about becoming something grand. It's about returning home to the essence that was never lost, only obscured by the mind's noise. The paradox here is beautiful. To create authentically, I don't force, I allow. To hold power, I let go. To understand, I open to not knowing. That silent, glowing center doesn't demand control. It invites presence, patience, and a gentle surrender to what wants to be known through experience rather than thought. Living this way has changed how I face stress, uncertainty, and the endless scroll of daily distractions. Instead of chasing outcomes, I rest in awareness itself, letting the flame guide rather than be driven. Try this now. As you read these words, notice your own awareness flickering like that candle flame, slipping beyond your grasp as soon as you try to hold it. Instead of tightening your focus or pushing away the wandering, lean into the movement itself, feeling the life pulsating in the unknown. Ask gently, not for answers or control, but for presence. What if that presence is the flame you've been chasing all along? This simple sense of being both fire and witness can reshape your experience from restless striving into a living embrace of now. The truth, enlightenment is full participation, not escape. Imagine standing before a flickering flame, sensing the warmth and energy radiating from within. That fire isn't separate from you. It is part of who you are. This image captures what some recognize as creator consciousness, an awareness that goes beyond simply noticing life's moments. It's like feeling the fire's heat not just on the surface, but deep inside your bones. When we see enlightenment this way, it isn't about escaping chaos or discomfort, but about recognizing that it's all part of our true nature, a process we actively take part in, not a distant goal to reach. Instead of looking for a way out of the mess of daily life, think of awakening as turning the volume up on your participation. When we believe enlightenment is about becoming a detached observer or leaving behind our struggles, we often miss the point. True awareness, I've noticed in myself, is about engaging fully with whatever is happening, feeling the frustration of late-night worries, recognizing the rush of notifications that steal our focus, or experiencing the quiet moments of doubt on silent drives. It's a dance, not a retreat. The more we step into these moments, the brighter the flame within becomes, revealing that the power lies not in avoiding life, but in living it deeply. We often carry false notions that enlightenment means transcending pain or escaping our human limits. But in reality, it's more like learning to stand in the middle of a storm and recognize that we are the storm itself. We tend to think of peace as something to reach when everything feels broken, but peace exists when we stop trying to find it elsewhere. The myth that enlightenment is about escape keeps us trapped in a cycle of chasing something outside ourselves. Instead, the truth is that awakening is about realizing we are already whole. It's like noticing that the flame inside us has been burning all along, just waiting for us to see it as part of ourselves rather than something separate or distant. Part of this is understanding that participation does not mean perfection. It's okay to stumble or feel overwhelmed. The key is noticing your reactions and choosing to be present with them. When we get caught up in storytelling about how we should be feeling or what we must do to improve, we forget that life isn't about fixing ourselves but about accepting what is. A helpful question can be, am I simply watching this moment or am I trying to run from it? Recognizing the difference can be transformative, because it shifts our perspective from avoidance to acceptance and ultimately to love. This kind of awareness turns the experience of life into a series of opportunities for growth, not escapes from discomfort. So, practice sitting quietly and noticing your breath or your thoughts without judgment. Allow yourself to feel whatever is there, no matter how uncomfortable it might seem. Remember, full participation means that even the difficult moments are part of the larger picture. Every feeling, noise, or thought is a thread woven into the fabric of who you are. Removing the idea of needing to escape creates space to truly be present. When you embrace this truth, you realize that the power of enlightenment lies in your willingness to show up, fully engaged, fully alive, rather than stepping back in fear. The flame within isn't something to attain, it's a fact waiting to be acknowledged deep inside you. The monk laughing at traffic, the artist painting joy in chaos. One morning, I found myself stuck in traffic, a frustrating scene that seemed like a metaphor for life itself. While surrounding cars honked and tempers flared, I caught sight of a monk on the side of the road. He wore a peaceful smile, and surprisingly, he was laughing. His laughter didn't mock the chaos. Instead, it resonated with a deep understanding of life's unpredictable nature. I couldn't help but wonder what it felt like to experience such surrender to the flow of existence. Maybe you have been in a similar situation, enveloped in frustration while witnessing someone else's calmness, a gentle reminder that life doesn't always go according to plan. There's a kind of freedom in accepting our lack of control. This monk's reaction transformed a stressful moment into a lesson in embracing the present. In our desire for order and predictability, we often forget that life is more like a river, constantly shifting and changing. Instead of fighting against the current, he chose laughter, a tool that lightens the weight of our burdens. Picture the jammed vehicles and the endless beeping of horns intensifying your anxiety. But amid that, here's a man reminding us that humor can replace tension, even in moments of uncertainty. It's about seeing life not as a series of daunting obstacles but as a dance we can sway with, regardless of how chaotic it appears. I've often marveled at how artists seem to pull inspiration from thin air, especially in turbulent times. One day, I stumbled upon an artist at work in a public square. Despite the noise and chaos around him, a band playing nearby, children laughing, and people hurrying to their destinations, he was completely absorbed in creating his masterpiece. With every stroke of the brush, he transformed the chaos into something beautiful. That moment struck me. This was not just about art, it was a representation of resilience. The external clamor did not distract him. It fueled him instead, and I wondered, how many of us have left our dreams and aspirations aside because of life's distractions? This artist painted joy amidst the frenzy, embodying a creator consciousness that thrives on the external noise. Watching him, I recalled times when I allowed stress and distractions to overshadow my own passions. If chaos can spark creativity in one person, why can't it spark growth in others? The artist was living proof that we can shape our surroundings rather than letting them consume us. In our daily lives filled with notifications and meetings, we too can find our canvas. We can transform stress into motivation, chaos into creation, and obstacles into opportunities for growth. As we journey through our lives, let's consider where we channel this energy. Maybe we can create our own art from the noise, whether it's writing a story, planting a garden, or simply finding joy in the everyday. The hustle and bustle around us can shift from being mere distractions into inspiration, guiding us towards something profound. Each moment, whether filled with laughter like the monk or creativity like the artist, is a chance to create meaning in our lives. When you're caught in the whirlwind of daily life, pause and find your laughter. Let it intertwine with the chaos, and see what unfolds. Laughter can be a form of rebellion against stress, while creativity can turn the world's noise into your personal masterpiece. Embrace the disturbances as part of your unique melody, and take a moment to paint your joy amid the chaos. Practice the flame statement. There's a particular stillness that falls when the world finally quiets down, late at night, when the hum of daily life fades into silence and the flicker of a candle casts soft shadows across the dark walls. In these moments, a longing rises from deep within, a subtle ache for something beyond the noise, the endless scroll of notifications, and the tired buzz of our overworked minds. I felt it in those stretched hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering if there's a spark waiting to be found in the darkness, a connection to a force bigger than my restless thoughts. Maybe you have too, that almost invisible pulse calling us toward a greater presence, a still, warm flame inside that seems to struggle against the cold distractions around us. This quiet yearning isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's the soul's way of reminding us that we were made to touch something sacred, even when the world outside is full of noise. If you imagine that small candle flickering in a dark room, it suddenly becomes more than just light. It's a symbol of creator consciousness, a gentle awakening that stirs beneath the surface of everyday life. The flame doesn't demand to be noticed, it simply waits, glowing softly until we notice and invite it in. This simple light in the dark is a reminder that the divine is never absent. It's always present, patiently holding space for us to turn inward. In the silence, away from the flood of emails, the never-ending deadlines, and the pressure to perform, that tiny flame is a call to remember who we are beyond the roles we play. It's the quiet pulse of something alive, a profound presence that asks only for attention, not effort. That flickering candle becomes a metaphor for the moment we step beyond surface distractions and tap into the deeper, creative force within ourselves. It's a soft illumination that cuts through the mental clutter, shedding light on the raw, unfiltered part of us that's connected to everything. This is where true peace breathes quietly beneath the roar of day-to-day life, waiting for us to lean in and become still enough to feel the stirrings of divine presence. It's in this stillness that a shift can happen, the difference between chasing after external validation and realizing the creative power humming quietly inside, ready to be engaged by a glance, a breath, or a quiet word spoken inwardly. The flame statement is a simple phrase, an affirmation that becomes our anchor when the world pulls us in dozens of directions. It's a deliberate turning toward that inner candlelight, a statement that reconnects us with the essence of our being, the spark of creation, the divine energy breathing through every moment. When I first started using the flame statement, it was like pressing pause on the chaos. It helped me center myself without needing to build elaborate rituals or search for answers outside. The magic comes not from complexity but from the quiet power of returning to a single truth, that the divine is already here, already within, waiting to be embraced. By speaking or thinking the flame statement with intention, we create a pathway out of distraction and anxiety. For a moment, we set aside the never-ending chatter of the mind, the to-do lists, the worries about what's next. Instead, we turn to a phrase that holds space for the unknown but known presence deep inside. It isn't about believing instantly in something new or different. It's about opening a door to recognition, to awareness that the flame exists, and that it can guide us through the turmoil. This subtle redirection can shift how we experience time, stress, and even our sense of self. The statement unlocks a gentle invitation to return home to our own creative spirit, buried beneath layers of noise and distraction. Here's what happens. As you say the statement, your attention softens and draws inward, much like a candle flame's light pulls the focus within a dark room. You move beyond overwhelming thoughts to a quiet space where the voice of divine energy can be heard, not as words but as a feeling. Over time, this practice builds a sanctuary within, a private refuge that exists separate from screens, deadlines, and incessant demands. It reminds us that the power we seek never needed to be found outside. It resides quietly inside, waiting for a moment of stillness. The flame statement isn't just a phrase. It's a bridge from distraction back into presence. One way to think about the flame statement is like a lighthouse on a rough sea. When waves of doubt or fear crash in, this steady light helps us navigate back to calm waters. It doesn't stop the storm, but it reminds us there's a safe place inside that the storm cannot reach. Next time you find yourself overwhelmed by endless thoughts or the weight of busyness, try returning to this practice. Speak the statement softly or hold it in your mind. Notice how the simple act of focusing on a light within can shift the entire tone of your experience. The cycle of conscious descent and return. Sometimes, in the quiet moments of life, I notice a strange rhythm unfolding within me, an ongoing motion of diving inward, questioning, and then resurging back into awareness. It's like a wave that pulls me beneath the surface, into depths I didn't even know existed, only to bring me back to the sunlit shore of clarity. This cycle isn't one that happens once. It's a constant spiral, where each descent softens the edges of my doubts and each return reminds me of the light within. We all experience this movement, often without realizing it, caught between feeling lost in the dark and guided back by flickers of insight. It's as if the universe whispers, "Go inward, then come back out," and in those whispers, truth reveals itself slowly and quietly. This meaningful pattern acts like a sacred dance, one that shapes how we understand ourselves and our creative power. When we descend into doubt or silence, it's not a sign of failure but a necessary step in the process of expanding consciousness. These moments of quiet often feel like stagnation, yet underneath, they simmer with potential energy. Our minds, haunted by endless notifications or rushing deadlines, push us outward again and again, trying to escape the depths we encounter. But the real growth happens when we accept the descent as part of the cycle, understanding it as a prologue to profound return. That's when the true magic begins, the realization that every act of going inward clears the space for radiant awareness to re-emerge, stronger and more rooted than before. This cycle becomes a mirror for how we relate to our own power. When we cling only to bright moments or avoid the darkness, we cut ourselves off from the sacred dance happening just beneath the surface. By embracing the descent, we learn that doubts and quiet moments are not signs of weakness but signals that deep transformation is underway. When we allow ourselves to surrender into those depths without resistance, we uncover a hidden strength, that of trusting the process, of knowing that even in stillness, energy is stirring. This shift in perspective reveals that our true power isn't in pushing outward all the time but in flowing with these natural waves, trusting that each descent is preparing us for a radiant return. To recognize this pattern in your own life can be simple yet profound. When you find yourself scrolling endlessly through notifications, feeling burnt out at work, or lying awake at night questioning meaning, consider these moments as parts of the cycle. Instead of fighting them, ask yourself, what is this darkness trying to teach me? Or what new awareness is waiting in the silence? Sometimes, just acknowledging the ebb and flow can make these phases feel less intimidating. Over time, you'll see that each descent into doubt or quiet is a vital step toward awakening, like a seed falling into the soil, resting, waiting, then blossoming anew. Remember, the cycle is not a mistake or a sign of failure, but a sacred rhythm carved into the fabric of creation itself. This universal rhythm reminds us that true power isn't found in control or constant activity but in surrendering to the natural flow of life. The descent into darkness cleanses our perspective, stripping away illusions and false layers of identity. Then, as we re-emerge, fresh insights and renewed energy come with the return, revealing the shimmering truth that was always there, waiting to be uncovered. Pay attention to your own internal waves. Notice when thoughts of doubt or fatigue come up. It's often the prelude to a new level of clarity. Trust that the cycle will carry you through, and when you're deep in the quiet, remember that this is the fertile ground where true creation begins, waiting patiently for you to claim it once again. Epilogue. The door has always been open. The building was never locked. As I sit alone, the world has hushed itself. Stars flicker in the vast expanse above, and in this stillness, I find a strange comfort. The door to true freedom stands just beyond my doubts, patiently waiting for me to open it. The weight of unspoken fears seems to lift in this quiet hour. I'm reminded of how often I have let these doubts lock me away from my own potential. Perhaps you have felt this too, trapped in the confines of your own mind, longing to experience something greater but unsure of how to begin. I perceive it now. This gateway wasn't hidden or locked. Rather, it was obscured by my own fears and misunderstandings. The challenges I face often seem insurmountable, yet they invite me to confront them with gentle courage. Late-night anxieties creep in like shadows, and in those moments, I realize they don't define me. It's as if the door to my inner sanctuary quietly whispers that stepping through requires me to relinquish the grip fear has on my heart. Finding this courage isn't just about the big moments but also about the little choices. It's about being brave during that silent car ride home, where thoughts of unworthiness echo louder than the hum of the engine. When I allow myself to acknowledge these feelings without judgment, I can see that it's okay to be vulnerable. In those moments, wonderful clarity begins to pour in, revealing that true peace was always within reach, waiting for me to unlock it myself. Often, we trap ourselves in cycles of overthinking, caught in a loop of what-ifs and maybes. The psychological pressure can feel paralyzing, like an anchor in the ocean pulling me deeper into uncertainty. Yet, each wave of doubt also presents an opportunity for release, a chance to float towards self-acceptance. Through this exploration, I've discovered that recognizing my feelings is the first step towards stepping beyond them. It's a practice of returning to the moment. What can I learn from the discomfort? How can I turn that unease into understanding? Metaphors often serve as powerful tools of clarity. I think of life as a long hallway filled with doors, each representing a choice, a possibility. At times, I've stood frozen in front of a door, paralyzed by the fear of what lies beyond. What if heartbreaking experiences awaited me? But as I now reflect, I recognize that fear and curiosity are not opposites but rather companions in this journey. The moment I shift my perspective and grasp the door handle, I take back my power. The understanding that I can choose to step through is profoundly freeing. The next time you feel overwhelmed, try this simple exercise. Take a deep breath and allow your thoughts to slow down. Ask yourself, what is holding me back? Try to visualize that fear as a tangible entity, something you can acknowledge and address, rather than ignore. By naming it, you bring it into the light. It's a way to reclaim agency over your feelings, recognizing that they do not have to confine your potential. Just like that silent night sky, the space you can fill with possibility is vast. Your fears do not have to define your reality. The doorway to freedom has always been there. Perhaps it's time to step through and feel how it stretches out before you, inviting you to a life confidently lived. Recognizing our own unlocked room. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thoughts swirling in endless loops as if searching for something just out of reach? I have. That nagging feeling that a door stands before you, one that promises answers, closure, or the kind of understanding that could ease the tension knotting your chest. It's there, but it won't quite open. It's like scrolling through a stream of endless notifications, hoping for a message that clicks everything into place. That door feels both close and distant, a silent invitation that teases the edge of your awareness but never quite swings open, leaving you suspended between hope and frustration. It's more than just waiting for clarity or relief. It's the restless energy of trying to reach something inside yourself that you sense, but can't fully grasp. Maybe you felt it during a quiet car ride home, when the world blurs past the window and your mind drifts to questions you can't speak aloud. Or in the middle of a hectic workday, when your brain buzzes with task lists but underneath there's a tug at your heart, a silent call toward something deeper. That door, still closed, beckons, as if holding the key to the room where your truest self waits. That moment, the one where you realize you've been looking for closure outside of yourself, is often filled with subtle discomfort. It's a paradox of wanting to move forward, but feeling the weight of unseen walls. This is where the soul stretches quietly, held in tension between what is familiar and the unknown just beyond the threshold. Then comes a moment of awakening. The door was never actually locked. It has been standing ajar all along, waiting for you to recognize the key you have been carrying, sometimes unknowingly, in your own pocket. That key is awareness, the simple act of tuning into your own presence rather than chasing answers outside yourself. It's the realization that the light inside that room, the part of you seeking understanding, has always been waiting to shine. This is not about forcing something open or breaking down barriers, but gently turning the handle with a quiet confidence you've had from the start. Many of us get stuck because we believe the answer lies beyond ourselves, in another person's opinion, an event, or some external validation. But in truth, the power to open that door has always been within. Think about the times you've paused long enough to listen, that stillness, that breath, the moment when silence grows thick enough to hear your own heartbeat. That is the key's soft turning. Suddenly, the room reveals itself, a space filled with a truth that only you can know, a truth that isn't loud or flashy but steady and real. This new awareness changes how you sit with yourself during late-night anxieties or the quiet tension of unspoken feelings. It redefines your sense of closure, not as a permanent lock or unlock, but as a willingness to show up in your own experience without needing to escape or explain it away. The door remains open, inviting you to step inside whenever you choose, a private sanctuary waiting beyond the facade of busyness and distraction. Try this. The next time you feel the pull toward that intangible door, pause for a moment. Close your eyes and gently ask yourself what part of you is waiting. Notice your breath as you do, allowing it to ground you. This simple practice honors that inner space and helps you recognize the key you've always had, the quiet, unshakable awareness that lets you unlock your own room again and again. Invitation to live consciously. Quiet moments often slip by unnoticed, like little clouds drifting past a clear sky. I remember one late night sitting alone in my quiet room, feeling the gentle pull of my thoughts swirling around worries, regrets, and endless scrolls of notifications. Then, amidst that quiet chaos, a subtle realization dawned. There was a door that had been open all along, leading to a place of true awareness. I had hesitated for so long to step through because I thought awareness was something distant, reserved for monks or sages. But actually, it was always within reach, nestled just behind my busy mind. This quiet insight became a gentle invitation. It's not about achieving some lofty state or escaping life's mess, but about recognizing that consciousness is not a rare visitor but an ever-present doorway. It's always there, waiting like a familiar friend's hand extended in patience. Living with awareness means noticing that each moment holds a chance to see clearly, to feel genuinely, and to choose intentionally rather than reacting on autopilot. It's realizing that despite the noise and confusion, the power to live differently is right here, hidden in the simple act of paying attention, right now. This invitation to live consciously is a gentle reminder that life isn't just happening to us. It's happening through us. When we begin to see that our thoughts, feelings, and even our reactions are part of a bigger flow, we start to understand that true strength resides in awareness. By mindfully observing what's happening without immediately trying to change it, we create space to understand ourselves better, to notice patterns, and to choose what serves us best. Living consciously is about recognizing that each moment is an opportunity, a tiny window into the truth of our own presence. Sometimes, all it takes is a quiet pause, perhaps while waiting in line, during a silent ride, or in the stillness after a long day, to notice what's really happening inside. These small acts of awareness add up over time, gradually shifting us from being tossed by our fears and habits to being grounded in our own resilience. Living consciously does not demand perfection or constant mindfulness. It asks only for gentle curiosity. What if, instead of rushing through life, we slowed down just enough to see ourselves clearly? What if each breath became a new beginning, an invitation to wake up to what is? So, here's a simple gift. Next time you find yourself caught in the whirl of notifications, worries, or endless to-do lists, pause just a moment. Ask yourself, is this moment truly mine to shape? Sometimes, what we need most is to remember that awareness isn't about controlling everything outside but about gently stepping back to see what's inside. Being present doesn't mean ignoring life's messes but instead recognizing the parts of ourselves that, with kindness, can be more aware and less reactive. The power to live differently is here, waiting quietly, an invitation that's always available, if we're willing to accept it. A final paradox. Awakening within the unseen space. The steady hum of the engine is almost soothing, yet there's a profound restlessness in the air. I notice how the glow of the street lamps dances across the glass, casting shadows of thought and introspection. It's in these moments, trapped in between the chaos of life and the stillness of night, that many of us find ourselves asking why we feel so lost. Maybe you have, too. The world outside seems to pulse with energy. Yet, inside my mind, a different dialogue plays out, one where I grapple with the meaning of it all. I realize that clarity doesn't come from the next location on my travel list or the latest achievement in my career. It springs from pausing in that unseen space. That quietude, often filled with noise from my thoughts, holds the key to understanding my deeper self. Life has a way of making us believe that significance lies in what's outside us, but true insights pulse in moments of stillness. Like fumbling with notifications on my phone, seeking distraction, I wonder how many of us overlook the profound connection we can find in silence. Psychologically, we often find ourselves stuck in patterns that distract us from this internal exploration. The busy era we live in pushes us to keep searching for meaning in new experiences or social approval, leading to burnout and anxiety. We've all felt it, those crushing waves of stress from incessant notifications, the late-night spirals of worry while staring at the ceiling, just trying to find peace. It's as if we're conditioned to think our value lies in doing rather than being. Yet, what if the real awakening comes from recognizing that this incessant quest may be obscuring the deeper understanding we seek? To shift this perspective, I lean into metaphors that resonate, like the calm of a lake that reflects the night sky. It is in this stillness that the illusions of life's busy chaos begin to fade. There is a beauty in embracing quiet moments, taking a step back from the constant buzz, and just being. Consider the power of a silent car ride, where you allow thoughts to come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. This space can reveal profound truths often buried beneath layers of noise. Instead of hunting for meaning, we start to uncover it, simply by allowing ourselves to listen, to the whispers of our heart and the rhythm of our breath. A single question can lead us into this unseen space. What do I truly feel in this moment? In practicing this awareness, we cultivate a deeper relationship with ourselves. Try dedicating a few minutes each day to sit in silence, free from distractions. Allow thoughts to surface without judgment. Breathe deeply and notice what arises. This simple act of stillness can lead to revelations that transform your perception of life's meanings and mysteries. It is here, in the quiet, that you may find the true essence of who you are, beyond all the roles and expectations. True awakening is not about an elaborate journey. Rather, it blossoms from recognizing the small wonders within. Perhaps the most valuable lesson is that the unseen space of silence has the potential to awaken what we often fail to see. Let it remind you that sometimes, the answers lie not in the external but in the profundity of simply being. At the end of every great journey, we often return to the place we started, only to see it for the first time. You've climbed 7 floors of awareness. You've walked through the corridors of fear, ambition, surrender, and love. You've touched both the heaviness of the basement and the vast stillness of the sky. And perhaps, now, you can feel that these floors were never separate. They were layers of the same consciousness expressing itself through different rooms of experience. The victim, the warrior, the achiever, the creator, they are all you. None are mistakes. Each floor taught you a different language of being. Each level gave you the tools to ascend. The secret is this: enlightenment isn't about reaching the top floor and staying there. It's about moving freely through all of them, knowing you are the builder, the tenant, and the light that fills every room. When you descend again, and you will, because life invites us to, you'll walk differently. You'll recognize the echoes of blame and fear not as prisons, but as reminders to look up. You'll see every struggle as a stairway, every fall as an invitation to rise with more awareness. And when you finally find yourself standing at the building's entrance, ready to step outside, you'll realize the most beautiful paradox of all. There was never a lock on the door. There was never a door at all. Only awareness itself, infinite, spacious, and alive. Walk through it. Live from it. Be it. Because you are not just climbing consciousness. You are consciousness discovering itself. Written and published by Mindful Literary.